Hey, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here this evening at this city council meeting. Let me remind you that this is different from a city workshop, which we just had this evening at 4 o'clock. City council meetings are formal. Texas Government Code Section 551.023 will only allow you to use electronic devices in reference to one of those items such as media. Otherwise, please put away your electronic devices at this time and please silence your cell phones. I'm going to call this meeting to order, 5:30 p.m. Please stand for the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Please be seated. All right, City Secretary, we have a quorum. We do have one council member absent, Councilmember Judy Stokes for family business.
Thank you.
Okay. Proof of notice of the meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. The notice of this meeting was posted by Thursday, March 23rd at 2 p.m.
Okay, thank you, City Secretary. All right. Thank you. City Secretary, do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to presentations, recognitions, and proclamations. I have 2 proclamations for this week. If I may have Animal Care and Control, please come on up. Okay, whereas the National Animal Control Association has designated the second week of April each year as Animal Care and Control Officer Appreciation Week. And whereas the various federal, state, and local government officials throughout the country take this time to recognize, thank, and commend all animal control officers and animal control staff for their dedicated service that they provide to citizens, various public safety, public service agencies, and departments across the country. And whereas every day animal control officers put themselves in potentially dangerous situations to protect the health and welfare of all kinds of animals and the public. And whereas the City of Alpine would like to express its sincere thanks and appreciation for the outstanding service that Alpine animal control officers and staff provide on a daily basis to the citizens of the city and to various public safety, public service agencies, and departments. And whereas the City of Alpine recognizes and commends Jennifer Stewart, Charles Fox, Samantha Johnson, Animal Control Officers Vanessa Soto and Adrian Quintella, animal shelter staff, for the many dedicated and long hours in serving this community and for fulfilling the animal control officers' commitment to providing the highest and most efficient level of customer service. And whereas the City of Alpine recognizes the animal control officers who answer calls for assistance, capturing roaming and potentially dangerous animals, rescue animals in distress, investigate reports of animal cruelty and neglect, provide education for pet guardians about responsible pet care, and mediate disputes between neighbors regarding conflicts involving animals. Now, therefore, I, Catherine Eaves, the mayor of the City of Alpine, Texas, on behalf of the community, do recognize April 14th, 2024 to April 20th, 2024 as National Animal Care and Control Officer Appreciation Week in the City of Alpine, Texas, and I encourage all citizens to join me in expressing their sincere appreciation for the service and dedication of our animal control officers and staff.
He's right there.
Finally able. All right.
You forgot speed spray comments.
Oh, seriously.
Or by-
Oh my gosh.
Only
How
they'll
many
find out.
ghosts? Okay, and. our next
Thank you,
one is- Thank you. And for our next one, it's National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. If I may have those representatives come forward, please. You're on your.
No, there's more.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You also have my dispatcher of the year up there.
Oh, really? Thank you. Who's our dispatcher of the year?
He got the mic award. Who do you have up here, Daryl?
So I have Zachary Hurst. He's new. He's actually going through the academy right now. I have Will Romero and I have Deborah Alvarado. And
Yes.
Deborah's
Thank you.
still under field training, and so she's not on her own yet, but she's gonna be just fine. I heard her answer the phone earlier. So.
Yeah. Yes, good deal. Well, thank you for your service. Thank you. Whereas emergencies that require police, fire, or emergency medical services can occur at any time that require police, fire, and emergency medical services. And whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and the preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who contact the City of Alpine Emergency Communications Center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunicators of the City of Alpine have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in this past year. Now, therefore, I, Catherine Eves, Mayor of the City of Alpine, Texas, on behalf of the community, do hereby recognize April 14th, 2024 to April 20th, 2024 as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Alpine, Texas, in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe. Oh,
Take a picture.
Do I need it? There we go. Thank you.
So moving on. Reports, the city mayor report. I do have a report. I wanted to talk about the city charter. As many of you know, I have mentioned before that the city charter was first adopted on May 1st, 1993, and amended May 1995 and amended again May 7th, 2005. It is imperative that municipalities look at and update, if necessary, the city charters every 2 to 5 years so that they can stay current, especially for a rural community with about 6,000 people. The benefits include reflecting current needs. So this has been almost 20 years and we need to look at the city charter because priorities of a community can and will change, especially in a span of 20 years. And then a review of the city charter is going to reflect our current needs, our challenges, and our aspirations. Also for legal compliance, laws and regulations that have changed since the charter was first written. We know the state legislature changes laws all the time, so it's important to update the charter to ensure that we remain in compliance with federal and state laws. Also, it improves governance. So a revised charter can lead to a more efficient and effective government by clarifying roles, responsibilities, streamlining processes, and addressing any ambiguities or inconsistencies. Community engagement, because it'll be something that we will put forth before the community to look at, and then the community will vote on it. Our goal is to have this ready for you guys to vote on in the November election, because community turnout is typically higher during a presidential election year. Also, long-term planning, it's important to revise your charter for that, to incorporate provisions for long-term planning, sustainability, and resilience, and helping the city prepare for challenges and opportunities, as well as enhanced accountability. Clear guidelines and provisions in the charter can enhance accountability among the elected officials, your city council members, and staff, your city staff, promoting transparency and governance. So overall, it will contribute to the well-being of our community, and it's going to be responsive to our needs at this time. So you will hear future talk, and there's a little bit of discussion tonight on some proposed changes to the city charter. Okay, so city secretary, moving on to city attorney report. There is none. City manager report, city manager.
I just wanted to give an update and one item on the agenda and one item not on the agenda. I could not put the one item on the agenda because we did not get official notice until today, but the City of Alpine has been selected as one of the top 10 winners for the Keep Texas Beautiful Governor's Achievement Award. So we are a first place for our area and our population. And the best part about it is we receive a $130,000 grant to go towards a project in working with TxDOT on a project along the state highway. Adelina has tons of ideas and want to throw Poets Grove out there being one of them. So we're really excited. We found out last week, but we couldn't officially say anything. So kudos to Adelina and her team. They do an awesome job. So we're really proud of that. The one item on the agenda is the update on the wastewater treatment plant. I just wanted to make sure council is aware as we're moving forward with the continuation of improvements at the wastewater treatment plant. The engineers were here today with last week with electricians, here today to look at surveying. They are putting together the final specs for the RFP for the clarifier and the drying beds to move forward with that project. I had a wonderful conversation with Jalen and Callie out of Congressman Gonzalez's office. I told them that we're not disappointed if we don't get the community funds. We're disappointed if we don't get their assistance and other opportunities. We don't always know what grants to apply for, let alone the level of commitment that the city has to do to prepare these applications. Federal grants are not easy. They are very detailed and structured, and every box has to be checked, otherwise I don't even look at your application. In the conversation, several additional grant opportunities were provided, including one that this is the first year it's being funded. So I'm really excited to be able to put our name in the hat for that one. 50% of the award does have to go to economically disadvantaged communities, which obviously we don't qualify for anymore. But the other 50% of their funding, which comes down from a lot of that federal money that's been trickling down, can go to any other applicant. We've already submitted a request for letters of support from different entities and individuals for the community funds project, so we're not giving up on that. The one thing I really wanted to bring up is we were inspected by TCEQ last week. It's probably one of the most stressful times, considering every time we've had an inspection, they come back with a 2 to 3 page list of violations. Unbelievable what goes on and how we have to turn around and fix it. I did my best to wish Richard Wiley good luck. They did an awesome job. He touched base with me afterwards. I didn't want to go out there and make him nervous. He touched base with me afterwards, and the first time in his tenure, they were complimented on the current conditions of the plant. We received 3 violations, which haven't been formalized yet, but considering year after year, we received 12, 24, 30. We go into enforcement. We were really excited for that. They actually joked around with the guys out there. That's not always been the case. And the one individual, when I won't say the inspector's name, who's really the hardest on us out of all of them, actually gave the most compliments. So I just want council to know that we're moving forward with these improvements and that the team that we have in place is doing an outstanding job.
Thank you. Thank you for us.
Thank you. All right, city staff updates. There are none. City secretary, we're going to move into public hearings. I want to remind anybody who comes up to speak during the public hearing, you'll have 3 minutes. You need to state your name and your ward, and council cannot by law respond to you during public hearings. City secretary, we're opening the hearings at 5:46 p.m. Public hearing number 1, to obtain citizen views and comments regarding the first reading of ordinance 2024-04-01, an ordinance approving rezone application 2024-03-01, amending the official zoning map of the city by rezoning property located at 708 South Cactus Street and legally described as 1.52 acres, more or less, being the south part of a 3.0 acre tract of land described as the south 3.0 acres of the west half of Block 2 in Volume 36, page 410. Official public records means addition, subdivision A, to the City of Alpine, Brewster County, Texas, as per plat on file in envelope number 63. Map plat records on file in the office of the County Clerk of Brewster County, Texas, rezoning the subject property from R4 Mobile Home District to C1A Neighborhood Commercial District. Do I have anybody here to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, we're moving to public hearing number 2, to obtain citizen views and comments regarding special use permit 2023-11-03, a short-term rental use permit allowing a short-term rental to be established at 202 North 4th Street. The property owner of record is Carl Broch. The parcel ID of the subject property is 11906. Is there anyone here to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, we're moving to public hearing number 3, to obtain citizen views and comments regarding special use permit 2023-11-04, a short-term rental use permit allowing a short-term rental to be established at 1104 Del Rio Street. The property owner of record is Justin Talent and Colleen West. The parcel ID of the subject property is 30379. Is there anyone here to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, we're moving to public hearing number 4, to obtain citizen views and comments regarding special use permit 2023-11-07, a short-term rental use permit allowing a short-term rental to be established at 907 East Nations. The property owner of record is Mark Offenstein. The parcel ID of the subject property is 11054. Is there anyone here to speak on this? Okay. Please state your name, your ward, and remember, council cannot respond.
Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex Schmidt, Ward 5. Good evening. My husband, Silver Schmidt, sends his regrets that he can't be here. We're here to object to special use permit application 2023-11-07 regarding the vacation rental being run illegally at 907 East Nation Street. We received yet another notice of special use permit application on March 20th, and this is our second notice in 4 months. We objected to issues. First of all, the City of Alpine really not following its own rules, and here's the ordinance. And we know what those rules are. I will not address them here. The second objection is the personal imposition that this vacation rental has caused us. Since last October, we've documented at least 60 nights of vacation occupancy at this address. We've experienced more light flashes from vacationers' from their flashlights streaking through our bedrooms, trucks and SUVs parked in front of our property for days on end, and vehicle traffic pulling in and backing out into our street. Loud vacationers having discussions both day and night in the carport next to our windows. And you may say, well, call the property manager. Well, no. We are senior citizens with chronic health issues and do not need the stress of babysitting a vacation rental next door. We do not need the anxiety of who's going to show up today. We don't know these vacationers coming and going on a vacation on a daily basis or how they're vetted. This is not a normal neighborhood situation. This is an unfair burden on us, given that the carport abuts our property. It's what we see and hear out of our bedroom windows. This carport is used as a social gathering area for this property. For the property taxes and service fees that we pay for the privilege of living in Alpine, should we be subject to this kind of day-to-day intrusion and anxiety? Shouldn't those taxes and city services afford us the peace that we seek on a normal, quiet street in Alpine? Once again, our block and our neighborhood is composed of single families with children, the elderly, individuals with disabilities, and chronic health issues. A short-term rental, a vacation rental, is simply not appropriate for this neighborhood or on this block. There are ways to solve this problem for the owner at 907 East Nations other than the presence of a vacation rental. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, anyone else here to speak on behalf of this item? All right, seeing none, we're moving on to public hearing item number 5 to obtain citizen views and comments regarding special use permit 2024-04-01, a short-term rental special use permit allowing a short-term rental to be established at 301 South 6th Street. The property owner of record is Concha Ramos and Eulogia Valenzuela. The parcel ID of the subject property is 12194. Is there anybody here to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, we're moving to public hearing number 6 to obtain citizen views and comments regarding special use permit 2024-04-02, a short-term rental use permit allowing a short-term rental to be established at 512 South 8th Street. The property owner of record is Celia Teresa Garcia. The parcel ID of the subject property is 10399. Is there anybody here to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, City Secretary, we're closing public hearings at 5:52 p.m. Moving on to the consent agenda, City Secretary.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's consent agenda contains 8 items. Item number 1, approval of March 19th, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Item 2, approval of March 20th, 2024 workshop meeting minutes. Item 3, approval of special use permit 2023-11-03, a short-term rental special use permit allowing a short-term rental to be established at 202 North 4th Street. The property owner of record is Carl Brock. The parcel ID of the subject property is 11906. Item 4, approval of special use permit 2023-11-04, a short-term rental special use permit allowing a short-term rental to be established at 1104 Del Rio Street. The property owner of record is Justin Talent and Colleen West. The parcel ID of the subject property is 30379. Item 5, approval of special use permit 2023-11-07, a short-term rental special use permit allowing a short-term rental to be established at 907 East Nations. The property owner of record is Mark Offenstein. The parcel ID of the subject property is 11054. Item 6, approval of special use permit 2024-04-01, a short-term rental special use permit allowing a short-term rental to be established at 301 South 6th Street. Property owner of record is Concha Ramos and Eulogia Valenzuela. The parcel ID of the subject property is 12194. Item 7, approval of special use permit 2024-04-02, a short-term rental special use permit allowing a short-term rental to be established at 512 South 8th Street. Property owner of record is Celia Teresa Garcia. Parcel ID of the subject property is 10399. And item 8, approval of the transfer of $25,000 from the City of Alpine Health Insurance Bank account to the general fund bank account for the city's agreed upon contribution to the Alpine Independent School District childcare program.
Okay, I need a motion.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as read.
I need a second.
I would like to actually pull item 1 from the consent agenda. The March 19th, 2024 regular meeting minutes.
Okay,
And I'd like to pull 3 and 5, please.
okay. All right, so we have motions to pull 1, 3, and 5. I need a second to approve the consent agenda items number 2, 4, 6, 7, and 8 with items 1, 3, and 5 removed. Okay, I need a vote. All in favor of approving consent agenda items 2, 4, 6, 7, and 8. No, yeah, 2, 4, 6, 7, and 8. Please raise your right hand. Okay, City Secretary, it passes unanimously with all council members voting to approve items 2, 4, 6, 7, and 8. All right, Councilmember Nance, item number 1.
Item 1, the only thing I noticed on the minutes was the workshop, 4 p.m. for March 19th. Did Councilor Rodriguez at that meeting? She couldn't attend that one. So just
International Building Code, it talks about the number of parking spaces for residents. In this particular one, there is no parking space for this resident except on the grass. And the reason I've had an issue with this is, well, you can look at the proposal presented, it literally is parking cars on the grass.
And this is for item 3.
This is for item 3.
Okay.
That is correct. And so I have an issue with that because if it was paved or whatever, and it goes through another piece of property to get there, I don't know, Megan, how we get that one worked. I still don't know who owns the property that they're driving across, whether they have rights to do that or not. So I'm looking for some help to understand.
So, well, we don't know who owns the property. And you are right, the way the current ordinance is written, they can't park on vegetation.
Yeah.
We've talked about redoing the ordinance for parking and that kind of thing. Working back with the owner to find an alternative. We also don't allow on-street parking. They have to have on-property parking. So this would be one of the ones that will be hard to. There's no clear direction to go with this property.
So I guess my view is, if there was a parking space there, regardless of what number we say it is, I don't know why they just don't put a parking place there and say this is designated parking on property.
Well, they did not provide a parking plan.
Actually,
Besides,
there is a parking plan
Well,
associated with
yeah,
that. Yeah, the drive-through on the grass.
Megan, are these the ones that we were going to pass, just allowing them to operate until something more definite was decided by council?
yes. Yes and no. So at the last conversation about short-term rentals, it was decided we would put all of them back on, including the ones that were pending, based on the requirement for the parking not being met. So they've all come back up before council. Nothing's changed since then.
Right.
This one, we would have to do more research to understand. Like Mr. Stevens said, we don't know who owns this property. We don't know how they're accessing it. We don't know if there's an alley. Having the conversation that they need to put some type of a site pad to be able to, but then they do have to meet all of our restrictions with building services and permitting as well.
But we know there's no setback requirements to property line, so that's not an issue. Yeah, and I thought we had agreement amongst all of us that when it comes to parking, we'll at least have to follow the IBC. That's where I thought we were. If we were to say yay verily on this, then we're not even gonna follow the IBC, which is our ordinance, which says no one has to have any parking anywhere.
Councilmember Nance?
That's my beef.
So I guess the IBC matches what our residential is, R1, R2, R3, where 1 parking spot per house or premise, per unit on premise.
Directing your question to the city manager?
Yes.
I can't tell you that off the top of my head. I'd have to go forward.
It is, that's what the IBC says.
There's 1 spot for that.
Yeah.
And I guess, was this a separate unit from another house, the Brock property, or was it always? I mean, so it, without a on-site parking spot ever, then it never even met the location of the R1.
That's correct.
And these are those pocket properties that you guys talked about that don't meet even our current ordinances. These are properties that were put into place or built at different time periods. And so as we've updated our ordinances and requirements, some of these don't fall in line.
My point is, if I were to remodel a house, I have to meet the IBC requirements. Okay, I don't get a choice. Okay, and so in my view, we're talking about short-term rentals. We have got to come to some closure, and my short list is when there's no parking at all, and we don't know how to get access to it, and it is parking on the lawn. So basically, if we approve this, we're saying we don't care what our ordinance says. And so I have a hard time with that either. And I know we're gonna spend more time spending time on the STR, but this is not what I call the traditional STR parking issue. It's an issue where it doesn't meet IBC, doesn't meet STR, doesn't meet anything. And I just have a hard time saying yay or nay to it. So that's why I'm reason I raise it.
This one
Yes.
doesn't fall in line with even our simple guidance for
Yeah.
parking.
Okay.
Yep.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
I agree. I do know that we have some issues with with the parking, on a lot of STRs. But I do feel that we do need to work with them. I don't feel like they need to be not allowed to operate if they have some kind of parking. But yes, I agree that this one has nothing. So I don't see passing this one.
Councilmember Sandate.
We did agree on the STR parking ordinance, and I believe we're gonna have some more workshops to try to resolve
Mhm.
the situation on this parking.
Councilmember Nance.
I guess when I was thinking about this before the meeting, and if we have guidelines right now for our current ordinance, and if I think council will need to figure out how we do a permit, or like where my worry comes from is if we okay these properties, STRs, which I think outside of this one, I have to think about this one, but most of the others that do cover the guidelines or at least meet the minimum of what R1, R2, R3 is here, then if we come back in 2 months and we change our parking requirements within that STR when we come in and vote, then are these properties okay because they received a permit for a year? Because then in 2 months, they become out of compliance for our parking updates, what we end up doing there. So I think that's one thing from our perspective that we kind of need to think about. And the other one I was going to mention too is when we look at, I was just looking at some properties on the south side, and a lot of those will have, because we don't have curbing and sidewalks and no other normal things, that there's no clear delineation where parking would start or end. So, the car may butt into the street a little bit, but it's actually the majority is in their property or things like that. So, I mean, I like clear things, and there's just, who would have thought parking would be this non-clear, so.
I have a question, Megan. So if we do provide a special permit, it has to be for a year. It cannot be,
It's set for a year and then they have to renew.
so we couldn't do one, say monthly or month to month or something.
The ordinance has it for a year.
So basically doing this and allowing them to operate gives it a whole year. And then if we do something in 2 to 3 months, they'll be out of compliance, but we'll still be allowed to operate.
Ideally, we could go in and cite them for being non-compliant.
They wouldn't be grandfathered in.
Or we could grandfather all of the current registered STRs. But then in a year, like Darren was saying, is then do they come to renew and become non-compliant?
Okay, council, I need a motion for what you would like to do with this item. Item number 3, short-term use permit for a short-term rental, 202 North 4th Street.
I guess the one thing I would say on that one property is just, to me, it's not, I still come back to the idea of guidelines being very non-structured for the parking. But that property is not in compliance even for the city's parking requirement. So even previous to the STR, but all the other properties would be in compliance with the minimum.
Okay. All right, so I need a motion to approve special use permit 2023-11-03. You will vote against this motion if you do not want to approve it. I need a motion to approve. Okay, this motion fails due to lack of motion. So the motion dies. City Secretary. Number 3, 202 North 4th Street, short-term rental. All right, moving on to item number 5. Councilmember Stevens, you removed that item.
Yeah, I did. And so this goes back to the division. Well, there's 2 issues. One, they've been operating even before the application was submitted. So that's concerned about that, but we're going to work our way through that. It's the noise, as Alex has presented a number of times at City Council. there's gotta be a solution to help her and her husband in a place where they're getting light and everything else, and we don't have a light ordinance. We have a noise ordinance, and I guess we could have, Alex call PD every time they're having a conversation out in the parking lot. I don't know how to work it. My only reaction is, boy, I wish people would, if for this issue exists, I wish they'd put a concrete wall up so they block the noise, but I don't know how to go work this. So I'm putting it on the table as one of those issues to be able to go work. I see the owners of 907 East Nations Point, and I also see the Schmidt's perspective, and I just have a hard time. Because if we don't figure out a way to work these, it's these one-off cases that we run into all the time. And here's a one-off case where we've got a situation where a property owner who lives there permanently is not happy because of the STR folks. And the folks that are coming to stay there, they're not trying to create an issue at all. There's no issue there at all. But we don't have a solution. And I think it's unfair to say go for it. All that said is, they've operated consistently and we, the city, have taken no action. I don't know what a solution is to go forward. I really don't.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
On the noise. You mentioned that there were problems with the noise level, that council is not abiding by our own rules. Well, we need help. Council as a whole is not in the property, is not around the area. You need to call it in. There is a noise ordinance. And if there's an issue with the noise, then call the police department so something can be done. As far as the rest, STRs are here to stay. Whether we like them or not, we are trying to find a way that both the property owners and the neighboring people and everybody else can live with it. Y'all have to understand that it's a little bit hard to try to keep everybody happy. So I feel that the neighbors need to do their part too. They need to call it in. It's not a matter of babysitting. It's a matter of working with us on some of the guidelines that we have to try to help you with the issues that you're having.
Councilmember Sandate?
Like you said, we got a noise ordinance, then they call in so they get the meter and see how loud it is.
Councilmember Nance?
I just say the same thing, that we have a noise ordinance, which is important, and she did mention that parking on her property, which to me would be citable, or I don't know, I have to have someone from the police.
They're parking on their own property, meaning the short-term rental. The driveway is right next to their bedroom. So the conversations that go on,
Right.
People show up at night, flashlights going around, therein lies the issue.
Which would be an issue if you had a family living there with children, teenagers, young adults, being out there with friends or playing basketball or the kids hollering.
Yeah.
There would be an issue that way too. Unfortunately, that's something some of our older homes especially are built close to each other. But that's not something that I think we just need to work with them. Like I said, STRs are here.
Okay, Councilmember Stevens?
I've got nothing further to say. We don't have a good solution here. I am gonna go talk to the chief about how we go work that. And that particular STR owner I don't know who they are. I've not met them. And we're gonna have to go work it one way or the other. Because it is a unique property where I don't think the noise ordinance is gonna work. But I guarantee you, I wouldn't want to live there and have people roll in at all hours, because it's a big home, people come in. And therein lies the struggle, and that's unfair to the Schmitz.
Councilmember Sandate?
We're talking about 4 or 5.
907 East.
Not 907,
Number 5.
970 Nations, and if you drive by, you get a good look there.
Yeah, 907 East Nations, number 5.
Yep.
Councilmember Nance?
I would just say too that I think it would be like the perfect situation is for the two neighbors to work that situation out, so it doesn't come to council. Because I think we need to deal with larger policy things of like how to make everything fair. And if it's going to work in one neighborhood, it's going to work in another. And anything that we can't resolve at this level, I think is a lot easier to resolve between those neighbors, if possible. And the only other thing I would mention on it too would be if they think that that is important, putting in, I've seen some other STRs where they require a property manager to be reachable, within an hour or 3 hours or something like that. And at least they have some ability to get feedback or to push feedback on that.
Okay, Councilmember Rodriguez?
I just think that we need to be careful because there's going to be a lot of special situations. And we're gonna find ourselves not only trying to come up with guidelines, but then not sticking to them because special situations come. We're gonna have to find a way to get the property owners and the neighbors to realize that no one is gonna be happy all the time. But that we're gonna have to come up with something that's going to be fair.
All right, I need a motion to approve special use permit 2023-11-07 for a short-term rental at 907 East Nations.
Make a motion.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor to approve special use permit 2023-11-07, please raise your right hands. Okay, City Secretary, we have 3 council members voting for it. Councilmember Stevens, if you are in favor or against it, please raise your right hand. And 1 Councilmember Stevens voting against special use permit 2023-11-07. Moving on to information and discussion items. The first one belongs to the city manager.
The first item is an update from Emergent Air. We have Walter Kirkendall here this evening. If you guys have questions, they're kind of in year 2, year 1. It's time flies by, can't even know what year we're in. Just to provide an update on the current status of the EMS services being provided, not necessarily the calls. We all pretty much hear that happen. But to give you a little bit of background with where we're at with the contract, the services that they're providing, it's an overall feel for what they've done for the city.
Okay, thank
Good
you.
evening, Madam Mayor, council members. It's always good to see you guys. So you guys got the numbers for last year. Again, the first quarter isn't quite going to be prepared since it just ended a couple of days ago. But I'll have that out to you guys by the end of this month with the same type of numbers. This report is required by the contract that we signed whenever we initially came on. You guys are going to see a lot of the numbers. They stay pretty consistent throughout the year. We have some months that are busier than others. But what you guys will see, and I think I've covered this a little bit in the past, is our response times are a little bit longer than what they were in the past because we changed the policy in agreement with everybody that was involved in the first contract or in the original contract to stop running lights and sirens to everything that we run. For us to run lights and sirens, there's certain triggers that have to be met, time sensitive traumas, amputations, not stubbed toes, cardiac, chest pain, any kind of stroke symptoms. Again, that takes a code 3 response, colds, things like that dispatch gives us correct information on, or the information that we get, that we base that decision to not run code 3. Which that's pretty much a nationwide thing now, a trend nationwide, because every time we turn on our lights and sirens, especially in an ambulance or a fire truck, specifically, because they're bigger vehicles, they're harder to stop, things like that, it increases our chances of being in an accident by about 50%. The National Ambulance Safety Board come up with these numbers, but it's true because you have people watching those lights and sirens and not watching where they're going, people pulling to the left instead of to the right, things like that causes to be an accident. So this step was made consciously, and it seems to have worked out really well. So that's some of the numbers that you see kind of are a little bit longer than in the past, but still they're fairly short, especially in the city. Specifically in the city, everything's pretty close. And all of our staff live in the city. So the response are coming from very close. One of the things that you have that are on there are the no transports or the false alarms. Those numbers are not always caught completely because some of them don't generate paperwork because we get called and then we get canceled. It doesn't generate a run number. So some of those are a little bit light, but in general, everything is fairly accurate on this report. Any questions?
Mr. On the response time, have you had any issues with the railroad track with the train? Does that cause?
I specifically did, yeah. We got caught on the wrong side of the tracks. Whenever we first opened, we didn't have housing, and we rented an Airbnb on that side of the tracks. and took the ambulance with us and got caught. And it was a 15-minute delay. It was a problem and we couldn't get down and around it. At that point, also, we were from out of town. Our local staff members know ways around. If there's a way around, they know how to do it. But that has been a problem. Not very often, once a month. maybe.
Councilmember Nance.
This is a question for Megan, I guess. What's our contract structure like? 1 year, 2 year, 3 year with emergent air, or when do we renew? Do we know that
So we're up for renewal next year,
next year?
and otherwise, we can renew year by year.
Cool. Wondering how that works.
Councilmember Sindaki.
No comment.
Councilmember Stevens.
Nope.
I just want to add that this is a co-contract. So this is a contract that was signed by both the county and the city. So that when we renew, we have to make sure we take into consideration the direction we want to go, either as a whole or individual.
One more question, please. Do you all, we had talked about getting some kind of package for air transfers, and you all said you would be looking into that and working something up. Has something been?
Yes, ma'am.
Good
So
question.
it's a membership. So for air, it's really a non-starter. There's a no surprise billing act for air that you can't balance bill people. So what it was originally brought in for, and AeroCare had it, and so does Air Methods, other companies had it. But what it was originally brought in for was you would get a bill for $60,000. Your insurance paid 20, you would get the bill for 40,000. Okay. But now with the No Surprise Billing Act, which started last year in January, we're not allowed to bill that. So it's a non-factor for air. Now ground, it can be, and we have looked in that. In fact, we have everything done. Unfortunately, our owner who was in charge of it passed away last year. And so that's kind of been put on the back burner, but everything's ready to go. And so for ground, it would be a savings on ground. You wouldn't be able to be balance billed. That's what the membership does.
No, you need a membership in order to.
Yeah, and some people call it insurance. It's not insurance because it doesn't. If you call if it wasn't insurance, it would fall under insurance regulation. It's not insurance, it's a membership. And what it does is they sell it. And in the past, it was very useful. Because like I said, you would, by having that membership, which I think is about $60 a year, you wouldn't be on the hook for that other 40,000.
What about for somebody that has no insurance?
So for no insurance, for ground here, we get subsidy. The subsidy provides some of that, but we also get it from the hospital district.
And for air?
And for air, we don't get.
So there's no packages, nothing drawn up yet.
And so really, even the package that everybody sells, or that we would sell, you could buy it for $60 and then fly with us. That would be $60 we wouldn't have gotten, but we still can't balance bill.
Buying the insurance package doesn't make sense anymore, is what he's saying.
And I said that at multiple meetings.
Yeah,
I have to
Yeah,
be.
I was just wondering, because people that don't have insurance.
no, well, but
That's what.
Yeah, but even if they buy it or don't buy it, there's nothing we can do.
Right.
And I will tell you this, we don't, while at biopsy, we don't, it doesn't matter. We transport them no matter what. And that's air or ground. But we're committed to the community. And again, the community is committed to us. And so that's why we do it. The hospital shares, I mean, we provide all their flights, or all their ground, everything. And so in that case, if somebody doesn't have insurance, we do not. We bill them, but we have no mechanism to turn them over to collections. So the thing like that for collections, the thing, and we've discussed this, is some insurance will send the check to the patient. And then in turn, they don't turn that over to us. That we will follow legally all the way as far as we can. Because we do find out that there was a payout, and then they go and buy themselves a nice new truck, and we're sitting there high and dry. But in the past, that's the only time I've ever seen us really follow a collection avenue.
Well, thank you, everyone. I've been very pleased. I love the presence that y'all have in the community.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Please, some of the things he didn't mention was the community involvement. They just recently had several employees host a 2-day workshop, 4 different sessions on first aid and CPR. So I do now feel safe that if I have a heart attack, people can use the AED machine here.
Good.
But that was one of their things that we did ask them was the community engagement to provide education and training, and they have provided that. And I do believe you've been attending all the joint meetings as well. I don't know if I ever say that correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, and one of the other things, we just got a new education person that we're super proud of, and he'll be continuing education over here, both for the public and for any first responders that want to participate. He did his first, we did a new employee orientation for all of our old employees here today. We flew in this morning, so that everybody's on the exact same page. Nobody can say, well, nobody ever told me that. So now we have it all flat.
Yeah,
Sure.
well, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you,
Thank you.
guys. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Okay, next discussion item, city manager.
In January, the council directed that I provide notice to the Alpine Country Club in regards to the lease agreement and resolutions that have been passed for utilization of what we call the golf course. So on January 8th, I sent formal notice to the golf course or Alpine Country Club outlining all of the current concerns and issues that we saw between the contract and the resolution. April, I'm so sorry, it's Amy. Amy, it's renamed it. Amy White did stop by and we visited, and I did give her further information for her to take back to the country club to start discussions. Tonight is just a discussion item to decide kind of the direction we want to go. For those of you in the audience and online, some of the concerns we had was, of course, the profit status of the Alpine Country Club, the capital improvements and the documentation showing that they're improving, the annual lease fee, the successful install of the necessary water lines for the effluent tank, the water lines to transfer from brown to the effluent, a map of the water system, including irrigation, and then of course, a copy of the Alpine Country Club liability insurance. Those were just based off of the contract and the resolution. Every year, the council passes a resolution per our contract with the Alpine Country Club, outlining the expectations, the back and forth compromise. Currently, the resolution outlines that we provide a discount for the water, the potable water, and then the effluent. We were having issues with the effluent. We have now resolved that, so that should be back up and running. Amy White is the board president. She's here tonight with a couple of her board members, I believe, to further discuss this, to come up with some type of path to move forward with what we'd like to do with the golf course and that property.
Can you tell us if the documentation we requested has been provided?
So I did not receive any documentation. I know that they were working on it, unfortunately, with the way the deadline set, and we can't hand anything out to you at the meeting. Any documentation would have to be provided after the fact.
So, oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. But we provided quite an ample time for them to provide the documentation from the time that the letter was mailed to the deadline.
I can't explain what goes on with their boards and how they meet and that kind of thing. I don't want to put it on us. I don't know what happened on their side.
And the nonprofit status?
You'd have to let them answer that. I
Okay.
don't have answers to these questions. That's why
Can we
Could you
have
come
somebody?
up, please? Thank you.
I don't want to speak on their behalf. And be
Okay. Okay, just introduce yourself when you come up, please.
I'm Amy White. I'm the president of the club, and this is Tony Molinar. He's a member. First of all, good job over there doing what you do. And second, to be on a board, I've not been on a board before the country club, and thank you guys for what you do for Alpine, because your job for the city is for what we do at the country club. I can only imagine what you guys deal with. So thank you, first of all. So we met with Megan, and this was totally, I thought, I guess through not reading this properly, I thought that when we came in today, we would just present what was asked on the letter. I did not know that we needed to turn this in by the 27th. I apologize. That's my fault, our fault. But as far as the nonprofit status goes, I guess back before I became on the board, we were a private club. So a certain amount of to get the nonprofit status, so much of your revenue has to come from members and so much from non-members. Well, we've totally flipped that at the country club. For many years, we've been getting more money from non-members than members. So once we got an audit, which we hadn't had in a while, our accountant, Mr. Pace and Carol Causey came in, we sent some stuff into the IRS, all these, it was like score sheets that we've been keeping, boxes and boxes of stuff were sent to the IRS. The IRS comes back and calls Mr. Pace and says, you guys do not qualify anymore under the 501c status. You just haven't been caught yet because you hadn't got an audit. You have reversed. We make more money for people coming in that are non-members than members, so that's flipped our we cannot be a nonprofit. We've asked him many times, over and over, and that's just the answer we always get. We do not meet the criteria anymore to be a 501c nonprofit. So that's, we can't get that back again unless we went back to private, is what I assume. And by doing that, the amount of money that the country club would lose would be a pretty big cut to us. As far as some of the other things on the letter that you guys sent, we have done those improvements and we do have some of that ready. We just, we have the map, our own little map of the water lines and things like that. If you guys want us to show you that without passing it out, is that something that you guys could look at, or is that?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm happy to come over and spend time with you. That's easy.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
You're welcome to share about it.
Yes,
I'm
please.
happy to come over.
So this is our course, and we've mapped out our water lines. This is a little north towards Fort Davis. This is our fluid tank right here. Fluid tank. So I'll let Mr. Molinar.
So pretty much anything that comes from the fluent's gonna be the red lines coming out, which all these dots are part where the sprinkler systems work. Okay, the green line here is the city water. And what it waters, the blue is from the Brown Street well, which waters all this part. At the same time, part of the paperwork that y'all requested is that the water line connect to the fluent water tank. So it is connected to it, and it is filled from the Brown Street well. But everything, and also we have stuff on new lines that we built, irrigation on different holes. It would be raw through here, through here, through here. There's like 67, 70 sprinkler heads that were introduced within the past 2 years. So we have been working on the course itself.
So that does include the Brown Street pump too?
Yes, that's it's the blue is the Brown Stream.
Okay.
Is that our copy?
You can have it if you want it.
Well, let's say if it's our copy, if it's not, we'll make a copy and give it back.
I have another one. I'll give this to you.
Councilmember Nance?
So from looking at that, then it looks like you guys do require both types of water, affluent and top, no matter what.
Yeah, it'd be helpful, but like I say, we're pulling so much from the well, which we were taking from the city, that water. We should get it from the fluent, which would help us out tremendously. So once we get that fluent going, it will help us tremendously, and we'll stop taking as much water from the well.
Has either one of you spoken to Richard Wiley? I know
Yes, I did
okay.
today.
So you guys are getting a schedule and getting.
Yes, I had talked to him, and supposedly we're gonna start on Friday to start getting it in, and we're gonna have 3 days a week. I discussed the size of the tank and how much water it takes to fill it. We're just waiting for everything to kick in, and I'll meet with him and set a schedule.
Councilmember Sandate?
Is that tank gray water or gray water?
Affluent.
Yes, it's affluent, but we fill it with well water if we have to. See, without the affluent water, we have to fill it from the well, which all this red is well water when we don't have affluent water.
Councilmember Stevens?
So, help me, because I've spent a fair amount of time to understand it. When the affluent water starts flowing, How much city water will you need?
The city water will be anything on the blue.
I got.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, the green. The green is the
Gallons per
city
day.
water right here, which runs to the pro shop and to number 9 green, number 4 and number 3.
Yeah, gallons per day.
Gallons per day, I have no idea on that. I have not looked at the bill for the city.
Okay, and is your intent to try and get it all with affluent or well water, so you don't have to pull from the city meter?
That has not been discussed.
So a little background, we talked about the cities willing to donate pipe that we've got to be able to go work that. I offered to be able to work the trenching, and so happy to go work that. So from my perspective, our motivation is get you off the city water except in emergency. It would just take getting those tied together.
Yes, to do that, we'd probably be looking at 2-inch pipe.
We can, if you want to talk later, I'm happy to have a discussion with you to
Yes.
walk through that and make sure we can get you the pipe to be able to go do that. So that was one of the items that's important. The other is mulch. You're always using mulch, right?
No, not really.
You're
We
not
really
using it.
don't.
Okay, that's a difference in the past.
Yes.
You all have asked for mulch. I was prepared to get a truck to go get the mulch picked up and delivered, but if you don't need it, I guess you
And
don't. need it.
here, you know, just being honestly.
Yeah.
All of this would have to be dug and trenched and done whatever, and financially, the golf course can't afford to do that with our, but we're projecting an $8,000 in the red right now. Right now, $8,000. By the end of the fiscal year, we're $10,000 in the red. To pay a plumber, because I don't think any of these guys are. You know, once we start getting into water lines, it could, you know, that's gonna be a ton of money. Labor, we have, one man that works there full time, we have a volunteer, and we have, I think, 1 or 2 college kids that come out there. To put that amount of money into, this property, which I would love to do it, but financially, we can't afford the labor to do that much work
So
with our books.
I get that. I'm just gonna say it again. I've offered to help get the trenching and the pipe put in. If you don't want it, I'm fine. My motivation is trying to make sure you all get to the point where you're using as much affluent water as possible to drive your water bill down to 0. So you can in fact become profitable and affordable into what you're doing. Just looking for a simple phone call.
Okay.
Okay.
So Councilmember Stevens, when you say you're willing to help do that, you mean at 0 cost for them?
0 cost to you all. I've been trying for a number of years just to have the discussion.
So if we end up having to call in a plumber that will do the plumbing, it becomes a plumbing issue where we cut into something we didn't know was there.
Let's sit down and have the discussion. Okay, I've got resources that can help work that is what I'm offering to suggest. But it's up to you all. This is, you're running the country club. I got other things I go do, but if you want to take advantage, the 0 cost to you, 0 cost to the city to try and get affluent water to cover everything. That's my motivation.
Okay, at the same time, we've been without affluent water for what, 3+ years, I think?
Yeah,
And if I set this all up to affluent water and we stop getting affluent water, all this dies.
So have you, no question, have you been listening to what council's been doing on putting $1 million in the wastewater treatment plant? So right now we have capacity to about 85,000 gallons of affluent water a day. We're trying to get it to be 200,000 gallons. Your tank out there holds 250,000 gallons. We can fill it in a day. So particularly during the summer months, you guys use lots more water, better greens, better fairways. I think that's what we're off trying to work. You always have the flexibility of what goes on at your pump. Just trying to help you so you can draw your water from the city down. I know.
Water.
Well, I know. Just give me a call. Okay, that's all. I think we're all on the same same sheet of paper. Yeah. But I know you got turnover in terms of your board members and all those. Just trying to help them. So you want to call, right? If not, I'm sorry.
Okay, Mr. LaSoya, would you like to step up to the microphone, please? Yes. And just state your name and what ward your property's in.
I'm Ruben Losoya.
Y'all stay, please. Stay.
I'm Ruben Losoya and I don't live here, but
You have property in.
I have property in Alpine. So if he needs help, I can help him. I deal with the city of San Antonio. And I deal with purple water. In other words, gray water. Fluent water. And then I can show them how to fix the irrigation because I deal with TCEQ all the time. So I've done that at Sam Houston, Randolph, and Lackland Air Force Base.
Thank you.
So just call me.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
No, we got 2 opportunities for help. I'm on to it.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Historically, we've had issues with the country club following through with any of their part on the contract. There are city, you all do not come up and give our updates. We haven't had $2 rent paid in I don't know how many years. You know, you mentioned how, you all hadn't gotten gray water. Let's be fair, the city hasn't gotten what we have come to expect.
And I talked with Megan, I 100% agree, but like we've talked, like the board's turned over so many times, like I'm not trying to, I didn't have any idea that we needed to come tell you guys what was going on. And I mean, we are more than happy to, when you need us to come up, you let us know, we'll be here. I didn't know.
Okay, and I know, things happen, but I think y'all, I don't know what y'all need to do, but things need to be fixed so that there people are aware of what y'all have a copy of the contract.
Yeah.
Y'all have to keep up your end of part of the bargain too.
Yeah.
I think you all need to take advantage of Mr. Stevens and Mr. Losoya helping. The city does not provide discounted utility rates for profit. So I don't know if that's something that the city's gonna look at later, but we won't be able to provide discounted rates anymore. But I would take advantage of them before it gets to that point and urge you all to keep us in the loop.
Is there gonna be a notification before we can discuss this? Because I know we talked for the nonprofit base and different, we lease it, we maintain the food property. With the water. Or in between. Paying the water, we're on profit. But even when we were a nonprofit, we were making profit. So please explain to us, because we're not being, I'm not trying to be any way except just explain to us that we're caring for the property, but we don't get a discount to care for the city's property. Explain it, because I really don't understand.
Well, that's something that's gonna go into a little bit more detail, and Mr. Stevens has offered to sit with you. But just keep in mind that there are a lot of organizations here, the library, the senior citizens group and all that they provide services and are here for the city. But the city as a whole cannot carry a lot of the load. They carry a lot of the expense themselves too.
So does the library pay all the water?
Yes. The
And
library,
they pay
yes.
for all the improvements? To the library pays for all the. like,
That's
the
not a
libraries?
city-owned library,
Okay.
but
It's
they,
just a-
they are a nonprofit and they don't get a discount. When I spoke with Amy, I did mention that we would have to look at restructuring the contract. And then possibly the resolution, but this would be an additional discussion. We wouldn't blindside you.
Yeah, and that's what we're open, we just really we didn't have any idea of what was.
Right,
you know,
just take Mr. Stevens up. He's very knowledgeable and all that, and
Yeah.
it'll take the time to explain everything for you, because I think that's a little bit more than we were ready for here this evening, I think.
Yeah.
Okay,
It really-
Councilmember Nance wanted to say something also.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that we're on a 10-year contract, with them, aren't we?
Yes, but it comes up next year. So in 26, I believe.
2026.
But it is allowed to be amended and we've amended them in the past.
Yeah, so she provided me with several amendments to the agreement. It was, we went through some and she said at one point there was we didn't pay anything for water. So it's been a back and forth between things. So I just want us to be able to work together and make that place the place that it was set out to be, which is, you know, like the attraction in Alpine. And if it takes all hands on deck, which we know it does, and we have, you know, Mr. Philip here they've grown up on that course, and the amount of volunteers that come out there that are from here and donate their time because they love the course is, you know, it's a meeting place. And when it's tournament season, there's a lot of money that comes into Alpine for those meets, those tournaments, and we want to keep it going. And if we could make a way to stop pumping that water out and use that for the city when we're in drought, even better. So we are 100% ready to work with you guys. But you know, like I said, our apologies. We just didn't know that this was something that needed to be done, because we've never been. Well, apologize. We're like the board turnover is.
Yes.
Just this topic came up, the board has turned over in the past 3 months.
Right.
Yes, they are.
And, you know,
Okay,
and
so
that's good
but-
that there's two of you, because if something were to happen to you, Kelly
Right.
knows, hey, we still have this, and you know, he educates.
Yeah, I'm the senior member on the board, and I got on there just because they needed a board member. And within probably 6 months, everybody quit, and that's how I became the president. I was not planning on being the president. I did not plan on being the president. Annie, Philip, all the guys have helped me, but you know, I was kind of thrown in. But we've got, you know, all of us on the board now are like, we're not quitting. Like, we're not gonna quit. We got to see this through and make this place profitable to Alpine. And you know, our big goals, my big goal, I got on the board, I'll tell you, my big goal is to get the pool open again. It's just, you know, it's a process, and the number one process is to get somebody to even come out there and look at it from anywhere. There's just there's nobody. We've had a few estimates, and the amount of money is just, you know, trying to figure it out. But that our big goal is to get the pool back open up for the city, for our community. But that's our long-term goal.
Okay.
A short-term goal is to figure out what to do with the water.
Okay, so we need to close this discussion item. City manager, you have any final thoughts, comments, questions?
This will be back on the agenda for conversation in regards to amending the contract, and we'll provide you notice.
Okay, so if they have time to submit anything, right?
Yes, or even have a conversation.
Okay.
I was gonna ask one last thing. Are we can capably bring them, does that tank 30,000 gallons? Or how many gallons can that tank hold?
I think it's 119,000.
119,000.
Yes.
How much can we pump in there? Do we know?
We don't know until we actually start pumping it in. IMA, don't put all your eggs in one basket. When we have hiccups at the plant, the effluent water is not available. But if we get the plant running to where it needs to be, then, I mean, ideally, we could produce 200,000+ a day.
Yeah.
And it would basically push it out as fast as they can. We could fill it up. When we can't fill up the tank, we have to disperse it into the wetlands.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, next discussion item. Discussion regarding proposed charter revisions, including amendments, tentative propositions, and sample language. So I have started working on the charter. Geo provided me the legal language and format for which these need to be typed, which seems counterintuitive because items added in red are those that we want to add, and then the things that we want to strike out are in blue. City manager?
I was gonna say, can I take a quick break?
Sure. Yes, we can take a 5-minute break.
Sorry, guys.
That's okay. All right, so we'll take a break at this time. ready? All right, it's 6:51. I'm calling the meeting back to order. All right, so let's refresh our memory. We're on discussion item number 3 regarding proposed charter revisions, including amendments, tentative propositions, and sample language. So Gio, our city secretary, also known as our chief governance officer, provided me information on how these are to be written up. So I tried to put them in the appropriate format so that hopefully there won't be a lot of corrections that he needs to do later on before they can actually go to the ballot. I guess the best way is to look at them individually. The ones that I have typed up, it takes a long time to type these up. Each one was about an hour trying to make sure that the language was correct and what we needed. And there may be more information that I need from the city secretary and the city manager on what we need to do in regards to annexation, because I know a lot of our annexation information in the charter has since changed due to state law. So looking at Proposition A, what we're looking at is amending the charter to add that the council is required to review or designate a committee to review the city charter at least every 3 years. It's 2 to 5 years. I figured 3 would be a good number. 3 years to keep it in compliance with all state and federal laws and to verify that the charter still meets the needs of the residents of Alpine. If we have that embedded within the city charter, the city, looking ahead and predicting, should do better with looking at the charter at least every 3 years, instead of almost 20 years going past before anybody looks at it and tries to consider the information there. All right, so I'm going to open that one up. Proposition A. Councilmember Rodriguez.
I do think that we need to do it, but I do want to stress that even though it has not been looked at in so many years, I know we keep stressing that, I think council and the city as a whole has done ordinances and all that to keep business moving. I don't feel we've been at a point where we've been in a standstill, but I do think we need to look at it, and I think 3 years would be good.
Councilmember Nance.
I was actually thinking, I think it would be nice to have a steady time period, but I would be more towards 5 years. I barely looked at it, but it seems like we're not out of the, it's pretty common to not update this, quite often. And it seems like when large legislature comes, or the use of language may change or something like that. If we did have it every 2 to 3 years, then you're, injecting the possibility of volatility from new councils that come in and may want to do it, or the city, citizens every time you call a committee to have something like this. So I would lean more towards the 5-year mark.
Councilmember Sandate.
I'm for 3 years.
Councilmember Stevens.
So what's going through my mind, the state legislature certainly passes legislation and they meet every other year.
Every 2 years.
My inclination is rather than every 3, is either every 4 or every 6. And we would do it at a time period after the legislature is met so we can react. That's where my headset is. So I'd be inclined to go 4 or 6. I have the same view. It's not a big issue that we've not updated it. But I think it makes good sense. The other thing I would ask us is, we have a hard time filling our committees and we have a hard time getting our work done. I would like us to think about how we're going to go do this. Because getting a committee together is going to bring in a whole bunch of new stuff. So as I wander around, okay, and talk to people about the charter, feedback I get is, hey, we ought to go back to elections at large. Okay, that's what it used to be prior to the charter getting put in place. And so rather than do it by ward, you do it by plurality. You have 6 positions, and actually have 5 council members in a 6th position. Some have suggested, oh, we ought to go to 7, 6 council members and a mayor. All of that is going to be running around, and I just think we have to ask ourselves, what do we really want to do? So I'm in favor of it. I just think we're gonna end up with an interesting discussion when we go to implementation, because it will not be a short-term deal. It will be one that goes on and on and on, and it's gonna consume our time. So I'm in favor, but that's kind of my headset.
I agree with you in regards to a committee. That's why I embedded in it that the council is required to review or designate. So as, because we know we have trouble at this time, we can't really predict what might happen
Yep.
3 to 6 years down the line, filling committees. And so therefore a council member would need to take the lead.
Yep.
And if it's in the charter, it's enshrined, because what's in our charter overrules any ordinances that council may put into place.
Yep.
The way the city charter is written. All right, city secretary.
I think it's really up to you all, and Megan's done a lot of research as far as how it can work out to get to the election, but I think this is a great start, absolutely.
Okay, 3 years, 4 years,
I would
5
say
years,
longer.
6
I would
years.
agree with Councilor Stevens, 6 years.
6 years.
Makes it for
City manager.
I don't have my notes with me. I apologize, but I do think when you designate a committee, you have to put in additional information, because there is state statute that outlines committees for charter review. The reason why we don't have to have a charter committee review right now is because we don't have it set up that way. So if we go with designating a committee, there has to be the additional language that outlines the committee, because there is I believe, a minimum number of people and that kind of information. To be honest, in my research, the typical is 2 years, literally every legislation, because legislation can make huge changes. Doesn't mean that they actually amend the charter. They just basically make sure it's in compliance with whatever legislation comes. If you want to go 6 years, I don't think that's an issue either. But if state legislation comes up, we definitely want to make a note of it so that when it does come up for review, that it's.
Now, that's a good point, that just because we're looking at the charter doesn't mean we're gonna sit here, somebody's gonna type up all these propositions to amend it.
Because it literally like, so in 2019, when the state came down and said that cities could not annex at free will, basically it had to be petitioned. You could have done a one proposition to remove that. But we know there was a lot more we wanted to update.
Yeah.
But when you have certain legislation come down during your review time period, you could have 1 or 2 propositions just to update based on that legislation, just to keep it accurate and up to date. I would definitely, like you said, you're just reviewing it. You're not amending it. You're not making changes. Everyone's just taking the opportunity to go through and say, hey, state came down. This is what changed. We need to update.
So you recommend 2 years.
And like I said, it's just a review.
And the other recommendation was to scratch the language about designating a committee.
Well, if you're gonna go with designated committee, we need to make sure it's in line with the state statutes.
So
Or
this-
charter commission.
I think it's
committees.
hard enough to get us as council to agree to these changes without adding a committee. I mean, it takes us forever to, which is great. We've all got different opinions, but you start adding a committee of 4 or 5 people, and it's just harder to come to any kind of consensus.
And so what I'm hearing is you think we should scratch designated committee.
I'm not for the committee.
Councilmember Nance.
I don't know about the committee, but I was gonna say with what Mr. Stevens said there, in that, just talking about going to at-large elections as opposed to wards. Not an hour ago, we talked about how do you get something on the agenda, and you have to go to your council person. So because this is an actual foundational document, if we go and change anything at that foundation level, everything up from that could possibly change as well, which that makes it scary to me to be every two years. If it goes through a process and you have to, if we're not willy-nilly changing it every 2 years, then fine. But a lot depends on this document because it is the foundational part of it. It scares me for anything beyond it.
And that's why I'm saying the 2 years is review.
How did we go all these years though without updating it? I mean, we were still functioning. So there is a way to function and add in anything that comes in after every legislature without actually redoing it, isn't there?
Annexation is the key one, so we don't annex. We just kind of ignore that part of our charter because we legally can't do it, because Texas law supersedes our charter. But that doesn't mean we should leave it in there either.
Right, but waiting wouldn't do anything to where you could say, well, we're at a standstill.
No, waiting doesn't hurt anything. And like I said, it depends on how you write the language. You can, as I said, the years is really not as big of a concern as me as just the review. Making sure we review to stay up. So if we reviewed it every 2 years and amended it every 5.
That's why I think the charter should be not very definite and not very picky, be a little bit more broad to where it doesn't have to be changed as often. I don't think that's what the purpose of the charter is.
And if you do look at other cities' charters, there are over 2,000 of them. Just there's a lot.
Yeah.
Everyone used the same template. So if you look at the formatting and the basic structure of a charter for home rule cities, it's pretty much all the same.
Which is a little bit more broader, right? We just seem to be adding a lot of.
Not that it's broader, it's just staying in line with what legislation allows. So if legislation says we have to wear purple on Tuesdays, your charter may or may not include that. For me, when I know that this project came up, I do want to update it to, well, one, kind of keep in line with what legislation is saying, and to remove what we call loopholes or things our charter says we need to do it that way. Not necessary. So that's where we want to go in. So if you want to do it every 6 years, and that gives you several legislation, I would just like there to be something in there that kind of requires us to review it so that it doesn't go 20 years.
And then there's a lot of work to do. A lot.
But
So
take to the
you're
point.
thinking every 2 years for a review,
That's
And
just typically what I've seen. So
6 years for, oh, I don't know how you would word that.
it could, like the year doesn't matter. I just want to make sure we put something in there that it's reviewed. The committee side though would have to
could
be
scratch
structured
that.
to include.
Yeah, so that's what I was trying to find out. Councilmember Sandate, what did you think about the committee?
I agree with Chris, what you said.
Get rid of it? Councilmember Stevens?
Take committee out. I'm just looking at some stuff right now online and it talks about there's 8 things that charter commissions or committees do. And I don't think that's where we want them to go. So.
Okay.
So yeah, it's very structured.
Oh my goodness. You got legal counsel, the whole 9 yards.
We can get rid of committee.
I
That's
think
too
it
much.
is review.
All right, and Councilmember Nance, what do you think about getting rid of committee?
Yeah, great committee. I'll plus you guys just said on that. One thing I was gonna say with what Chris was just saying there, and you've mentioned annexations over and over. If we haven't updated our document in 20 years, you would name 5 things that need to get updated on it?
So 1, we need to update the annexation. 2, you need to actually put in some type of salary or financial amount, because every year we get audited, everyone always asks us, how do you know what to pay your council? And I say 40 years ago, they made the decision at somewhere in the city secretary's office.
Why would that be in a charter? Does that need to be in the charter?
Typically, yes, it's very odd, or it needs to be in the charter that allows for it to be modified or updated by ordinance or resolution.
Like that.
Something that just says that there's a structure in place to know how much you're being compensated. 3, I really think the terms need to be defined better. And as you guys have all experienced, your first year you're learning, your second year you're engaged and encouraged, and you may not come back. From my position, every other year, I don't know what's gonna happen.
Projects get dropped.
Everyone changes, things, you're right, priorities change. We all know the 29 right now. So that's important to outline the term. Here recently, the vacancy isn't the first time we've had a vacancy issue. We had one in 2014. Rick knows all about it.
Yeah.
Being able to clearly outline a vacancy is important, especially how we're gonna fill it. This go around, we really took the residents into consideration. You know, it's their ward representative. They should be able to vote for someone. Am I at 5 yet?
I was just gonna say.
Yeah, that's good.
From what you just said there, what I hear is there are holes in the original document. Like as far as legal issues, over the last 20 years, annexations changed, right? But if we did something for salary for council, we could do ordinance or a resolution, something like that to keep the language generalized. And then in terms of election, nothing's really legally changed as far as terms of election. We just never really, we could change it if we wanted to. So when I'm coming back and saying, we say every 2 years, the state of Texas is changing what we have to deal with. There's very little here. It's just holes in the original document. It's not really changes that the state of Texas is coming down and saying, well, now your city charter needs to be amended,
Except for the annexation.
except for annexations.
So, but if we reviewed it, we would know.
True.
Because we have a more simpler home rule charter, we don't have the bigger issues. But if we review it and we know, we just all witnessed legislation put in some pretty big requirements, especially for cities. We have to make sure they don't contradict what we have. And there is specific language that we're starting to learn for our ordinances that basically goes back to as long as it doesn't supersede state regulations.
To put that language in.
And another thing for ordinances, it takes a lot of work. So we've all seen many workshops, many revisions. It's a long process and that tends to bog a lot of things down. So the more loopholes in the charter that are closed, the more ambiguities that are gotten rid of, actually the better. Otherwise, it's just more and more ordinances and the work gets higher and higher and higher. Like the analogy I made in the city workshop at 4 o'clock. Our to-do list is 10 feet high and our tallest member is 6'8". Right?
But I think,
Six
but I think
four.
ordinances are needed because you
Not
want to
short,
stay on the
16.
format with the charter. So I think ordinances are needed.
The other
Well, I'm
thing-
not saying ordinances are not needed.
Well, I guess what
I
I'm
see.
saying is that we need to try to stay with the format. I guess my belief is that the charter is not, the purpose was not to be on just little things. I think the little things should be done by ordinance. Needs to be,
That's
the
where it has to
format.
be clear in the charter
Right.
to allow you to do the little things by ordinance.
right, so not necessarily put the little things in here, just give us the ability.
So change your
To do it.
terms. to
Okay,
make it
so
easier.
so that we're online, on track, what are we looking at for the years? So Megan's recommending 2. City Secretary,
2 to 4.
okay, Councilmember Stevens,
If you take out a committee, I don't care.
take out a committee, okay? Councilmember Sandate,
I said 3 to 4.
okay, Councilmember Nance,
I'm almost leaning now, instead of setting a date, when something happens, Megan's gonna be the most dialed in, like annexations. And then she comes and says, guess what, guys, this needs to be updated. And then you could have a overall review, like every 4 to 6 years or something like that. But when these things, the last thing I wanna do is say, hey, guys, we should move annexations. We'll do it in 3 years. Like, as the state of Texas comes down and makes these things that we should be changing, you're gonna be the most dialed in, not us, but just normal humans up on council. And then you would say, guys, this needs to actually,
You're like, really?
normal, yeah.
Well,
No.
you're not.
No, but we're adding more to her plate when we say we're not gonna review it every so often, that she's gonna have to let us know.
But I do feel like it is part of my job to make sure I'm up with legislation and make sure we stay in compliant as a city as a whole, so we don't.
Because I think as all of us here, probably we could say that Rick is probably the only one that keeps up with all the legislation.
I don't know about that. I think there's other council members that do. All right, Councilmember Stevens,
So I think where we're at, that's right, the council is required to review the city charter as needed, but do so at least every 4 years. Does that make sense?
I'll go with that.
but do so,
So as needed,
but do so every 4 years,
At least every 4 years.
at least.
That gives, Megan can bring things forward, we can do our work, but if something else happens, hey, the clock's hit, 4 years, let's go to work.
How does everybody feel about that?
I like that. Last thing I would actually say on it is just, I feel like the council's job is to keep this document generalized instead of making it, because then coming back to the ordinances, even in chapter 23, we said we run off 3 things: ordinances, resolutions, and orders now.
Yep.
So having all that language in there. So that's the way.
I don't
we
know
do
about
business.
if it belongs in Proposition A.
It doesn't belong in
No.
area.
So, but it would go under the city council section with your
Yeah.
responsibilities and duties.
Mhm. Okay, so, all right, let's speed this along best we can. Proposition B, that's all that I knew that was illegal, so I'm gonna direct this to the city manager. So, and that's Proposition B and C.
So the recent legislation passed all the ETJ boundaries and considerations. So I'd like to do a little bit more research before you pull it out completely.
So should we leave
I don't- I
Proposition B
think-
or redo it?
Let's
see.
let's leave Proposition B as is
Okay,
and Propositions just B. And let me double check the ETJ information because that recently did just change. It is more in favor of the residents.
and that is for Proposition C, or that's an additional proposition?
I guess C should be included in there when you figure out what, shouldn't it?
Well, yes, all action of city council shall be undertaken.
So the Proposition C stands alone?
Yeah, that one could stand alone.
Okay, and so you're thinking about an additional proposition for the ETJ?
Yeah, let me go in
Okay,
and review the new laws. I know that if someone wishes to de-annex or annex the ETJ. So the reason why I bring up the ETJ is because of the extension of boundaries.
uh-huh,
And I want to make sure we don't put ourselves in a position where we don't extend our boundaries if we can. So I need to double check that.
And these propositions that you're looking at, stuff like that, do we get legal to check them? When it has to do,
So our attorneys would have to review everything. My idea is not to do it in piecemeal with them, but to actually get something in place and give them it all at once so that they can come back with their suggestions all at once. And I don't know if Alessandra's listening. Instead of here.
Right.
I am. I like that. I like it being put together like that. That sounds good.
thank you, Alessandra. Okay, so moving on to Proposition D, the city secretary pointed out to me that we are actually districts, not wards, so I would need to just scratch Proposition D altogether, is that correct?
Typically, type A general law municipalities are the ones that refer to it as wards. We passed the city charter changing the term to districts and we never followed through.
Okay,
So, from what I've seen, most home rule cities refer to it as district.
so we would leave, we would scratch Proposition D because I was trying to change the word district to ward. So
I would say, yeah.
Proposition D is
I would
not there.
I either way you want to do it, it's totally up to council, and then obviously the public is gonna vote. So
Yeah.
my only concern is we need to stick with whatever it is. So all of your nameplates say ward, all of the voter registration cards say ward.
The voter registration cards don't say ward
Oh,
or
they don't?
district, no. So I made sure to check with the election administrator, because whenever I found this issue years ago, because I always wondered why the two words, you know what I mean? It just basically says city, it has none. So it wouldn't make any difference whatsoever on that side of things if we changed it to district. It would really be most of, the district map, the ward map, and then anything in the ordinances, but that's why whenever we've updated ordinances, I usually try to say ward in parentheses district, or I do think it needs to be clarified though. If we do change it to wards, that's fine, even though typically, again, find that in type A general law municipalities, which we're not, that's a little odd, but,
what does city use?
most cities, home rule.
No,
use
excuse me, the school board, what do they use?
single member district.
Single member district.
Which technically in the election law, the way that we have our boundaries set up is a single member district.
So do you think keeping it at wards would kind of let people know that, hey, when you talk district, it's school board, and when you talk wards, it's city, or would that matter?
I really don't think, Alessandra can tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's really a legal implication of doing one or the other, so if everyone's preference is to go to wards, that's fine. I'm just saying, I don't think it's the norm, because we were ward because we are at once general law and now we're home rule. So either way, I think we need to just decide how we want to move forward and stick with whatever work term we use.
So you don't think there's any legal
I don't think
implications?
so. I just think it's a little odd, like I said, because,
Alessandra,
oh, you're on mute.
you're on mute.
I agree with Gio. I'm sorry.
So you think
I
that
agree
we
with that.
should change it to districts?
Yes, and there
Yeah.
are no legal implications. Yes.
I think Greg was trying to get your attention a minute ago.
Philosophically, we have enough things going on. In my mind, since we've not done this in how many years?
Almost 20.
We're gonna have a hard time getting everyone up to speed about what we're doing. And I'm gonna say districts, wards, why is city council spending any time trying to figure out as a district or ward? I think somewhere downstream for a couple of years from now, right now, we're just gonna have a hard time getting them to change the charter. So I would take this one out and save it for another.
Take Proposition D out.
Take D out.
So take some of the stuff that's just too broad and just.
I think it's the right thing, don't get me wrong, I just. Yeah, lots going on.
Yeah. Y'all were having a discussion.
I think it
We're
would,
just talking about
it would
ward
just
and
be
district.
easy, to, you know, it's in there as district. You know what I mean? Or district, or if you don't wanna have the two different things going on, then we can. Change it.
All right, Councilmember Sindake?
I always thought it's Ward 4 for years.
Yeah. So what's your preference?
Ward.
Councilmember Nance?
What is it currently, districts? In the actual charter, it's districts or?
Well, it fluctuates. It depends on where you're reading it. It bounces back and forth between district and ward. So in this particular instance, it says districts, and mostly it says wards throughout the charter. And this is why it caught my attention, because this one said districts, and I thought, oh, yeah, we gotta scratch that. And Gio was like, no, we're actually a district.
I'm kind of thinking if we put this in front of the voters, you know,
They're not
is it
gonna
really,
know.
is it really important to the voters to put this one on the actual election? And especially if we're gonna be doing it in 2-4 years again, we can throw it in there.
When there's not as much going on.
I agree.
So leave it as districts in the charter, right?
Yeah, so we're scratching Proposition D, gone. And
Yeah, because in Proposition E, it's listed as.
yeah,
But see, don't you think it'd be important to clarify? If the charter says districts, it needs to be written in district, right?
Well, that's where they need to decide, because it goes back and forth between
districts and
district
wards.
and wards.
I think most residents know it as wards.
Okay, then would you like to keep D and then just change charter to wards? That way it's uniform everywhere, because if we make changes to ward, but it currently says district, see where I'm going with this?
Okay,
I think.
if that's your recommendation. You are the chief governance officer.
Well, I would recommend clarifying, you know, exactly what, if it's word that want to do it, let's change it to word.
So leave D as is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just make it simple to sell. Fixing what I'd call an administrative typo. So this is, okay, this is not right, I'm done.
So change it.
That's my question too, real quick on that. Does that mean we have to bring every administrative typo to the voters to change?
Yes.
Yeah, everyone, separate resolution.
I think that's what Rick was trying to say, so let's not bog them down with all these little things, you know, just try to.
We have 11
Okay,
propositions.
let's move on to Proposition E. Okay, so listening to what the city secretary, chief governance officer, city manager had to say, and as my own personal experience, I agree. Your first year, you're learning. Your second year, you may be trying to get things done, but if you're gonna run for election, you're considering re-election. And then you're either in or out. Council changes quickly. We have elections, which cost the city money every year, and council can change over. I think that's the reason that there is so much that needs to be done that councils haven't been able to do in the past, because you have a turnover. We are about to have 3 new council members sworn in just 2 meetings. We have 2 more meetings. And so this whole council is going to change, and the priorities may change depending on what these new members want to bring in. And they will have a majority, the new members. So 3 years seems reasonable. Talking to another council member, they said 4 years seems too long. Nobody wants to serve on council for 4 years. Or it's just a lot of work because basically it's a volunteer position and you're not we have trouble filling places. We even have trouble getting council members to run. We have 2 positions that no one is running against them. So the members are going to be in there. So anyway, that was my thinking with the 3 years. 4 years was too much. 3 years would be good. So you have an election 1 year, then the next year, and then there's a year off. This would not happen until the 2025 election. So I'm not writing it in for myself. So for me and districts or wards 1, 3, and 5, or for wards 2, 4, and the mayor, it wouldn't happen until 2026. And then it would be for a 3-year term. All right, city manager.
I do think that you need to extend your term. I don't know if you want to, your terms, but I don't know if you want to go without.
Okay.
I attended a presentation at TML where
Oh, okay.
the presenter said why, you have people willing to serve on city council. That's a gender itself, really. Why, limit them to only serving a few terms? So there's some cities like LaPorte, for example, they don't have it.
Okay.
And I know that we have a hard time getting members to run, but doing that, we're having our city just run by the same people, the same thinking, the same ideas, the
Same people that the voters.
But if no one runs opposed.
Yeah.
But we have people not running.
Yeah, it's
opposed
a
now.
back and forth. It's pros
So
and
that's
cons.
true. I did some research because I'm kind of torn on this idea too. And the reason I considered it was after talking to you guys. So some of the pros, if I may, continuity and experience without term limits. Council members can serve for longer periods, which allows them to gain experience and deep knowledge of local issues. The continuity can lead to more effective governing and decision-making. Stability in a small community such as ours, 6,000, continuity and leadership can provide stability and consistencies in policies and initiatives. This can be particularly beneficial for long-term planning and development projects, which we know we need. Community connection. Over time, council members can develop strong relationships with residents and businesses and community organizations, which can lead to better representation of community interest and needs. Reduce turnover costs. Term limits can result in more frequent turnover of council, requiring these new elections, onboarding and training. Without term limits, these costs can be reduced, allowing the cost of elections to be allocated elsewhere. Flexibility and leadership. In some cases, experienced council members may be better equipped to navigate complex issues and challenges facing a small community. Without term limits, there is flexibility in retaining these leaders and their expertise. Encouragement of civic engagement, knowing that there are no term limits, individuals may be more encouraged to participate in local politics and contribute to the community's development, knowing that their efforts have a lasting impact. However, it's essential to note while these benefits exist, there's also potential drawbacks such as the risk of entrenched people incumbency, lack of fresh perspectives, and potential for abuse of power if checks and balances are not adequately maintained. So each community really needs to carefully weigh these factors when considering if you want term limits or not. Okay, so that being said, thoughts. Start with Councilmember Rodriguez.
Like I said, it's kind of hard. I'm back and forth. But I think I would like to, I'm not sure that I personally would want to just leave it open to no term.
How about duration of term? Like 3 years?
3 years is fine, yeah, because I do agree that in 2 years, we do really, like Megan says, the first year, I was lost. I mean, I was constantly on the phone to different people and what's this, and can you explain this and all that, and I still get lost. But you're a little bit more informed and a little bit more apt to make decisions on your second year, and then you have your third year. So yeah, I agree on the 3.
And you're wavering on the.
I'm just a little bit, I'm not sure I want to leave it open just to
So
the,
3-year
no,
terms
no.
with the same term with 3 terms.
She said she's thinking, I
yeah,
guess.
I'm still kind of, I don't know. I mean, I can see where it'd be good, but I just don't know
Almost
if
a
it would be
decade, so
abused, you know, if we end up with this.
Same person over and over and over.
3-year terms, and then if you had a three-term limit, that'd be 9 years.
9 years.
I mean, it's just, you know, after a while, you know how people get very comfortable in their job, they just. I don't know, just
Well, we have it set to 3 terms, so that's 6 years.
That would be 9 if
So
we
it'd
go
be
with 3
9.
years.
Okay.
I mean, we can make it 2 terms and it'd be 6 years like it is currently. Councilmember Nance,
2 quick questions. County and the school, what are their terms and their limits? Do we know?
the county doesn't have.
4 years?
County doesn't have,
4 years with no
Well-
term limits.
they're elected for 4 years, but they can be elected.
there's no,
The school is longer than us, I believe. I want to say they may be 4.
Well, I don't know because Eddie's been on there. He told me he's completing his 16th year.
Wow.
So
there's
they
no
probably
term
don't
limits.
have.
They,
term
I don't think they
limits,
have limits.
But they do have elections every year, so I think they have probably 2-year terms.
And then I was gonna say, like, I just need more time to think about this one. And then, you know, I think we naturally term ourselves out because it's enticing the $50 per meeting. But I mean, for the amount of time and everything you put in, I think you would have to worry about more if you were making $60,000. And it's like, all right, people are gonna use this as a job. So I just need to think about it more.
So your thinking is that nobody's gonna want to serve forever for the,
I think we'll naturally term ourselves out just because it's work and you know, you'll tire of it.
Councilmember Sadate,
I'd go for 3 times 2,
3 times 2.
be 6 years. Now it's 2 times 3, 6 years, so.
Councilmember Stevens.
4 times 2. 4-year
4-year
terms
term.
and 2 terms.
I'd require, I believe, a November election. I'm not.
So yeah, the 4-year does have additional requirements to it,
That's why this,
Which would also
which is why we went with the 3.
require an active legislature for us to be able to change to November. But it would be us contacting our representative, trying to get things moving. Fort Stockton did it the last legislative session.
Okay, so why does it require state legislature?
Because whenever you have 4-year terms, you have to have your elections in November. If I'm not mistaken, I can double check for you. And then the state law doesn't allow people to change from May to November unless it's authorized by legislature. Which we almost would have made it in this last round, that they allowed Fort Stockton to do it, but they had a cap on the square footage. And the cap excluded only Worcester County.
so the whole state legislature would have to,
It would take an active legislature for us to change to November.
why 3's best. Okay. All right. So this one we can put on hold, but we're thinking mostly, I think the majority are thinking 3 years.
I
Is that
don't
correct?
know.
Okay,
I'm open.
okay. And Councilmember Stevens, do you think we should try for the 4?
I'm a 4-year person. I think all the other elections we have around here every 4 years. I think it resolves the issue of getting and get up to speed. But I am a term limit person.
So you're thinking 4 times 2?
So we can look into just make sure that it would require the change to November.
Okay,
And I'm pretty sure it will.
let us
I'll get
know.
back to you.
Okay.
When does the school district have their elections?
They have
May.
it in May.
Because they are also, I'm almost certain they're 4 years.
Well, they have their elections every year, so that leads me to believe that they're 2-year terms, because every year we usually hold it with them.
Okay.
I think. I can double check on it.
Be great to find out.
Okay, so we're gonna hold on to this until we get more information on to Proposition E. And I guess, could you move it to the April 16th for us to look back at Proposition E? All right, F. Okay, so F just holds council to a higher standard. Our state legislature, our federal legislature, everybody's held to a higher standard. We should be held to a higher standard as representatives. Our constituents deserve that. So in this one, what I was wanting to add, it's a brand new proposition. Council members may be censured by a majority vote of the council for failing to complete budget worksheets, which is one of the requirements for us sitting up here, questionnaires, and or respond to inquiry requests by the city secretary or the city manager. Megan has trouble sometimes getting council members to respond to information that she needs, as well as unprofessional behavior during council meetings, including executive sessions, such as leaving the chambers before dismissed, things like eye rolling and just unprofessional behavior. Censorship, what that can result in is an announcement by the mayor at 2 regular city council meetings and notification in the newspaper, radio, and on the city website. City manager.
I think the language probably needs to be slightly changed. I was looking at other cities trying to find something comparable, but I haven't been able to.
Okay. City secretary.
I have really no preference here. So
Okay. Councilmember Stevens.
I get the intent, I get the higher standard. I certainly feel that we as council can regulate ourselves. I'm not in favor of doing radio spots, notifications in the newspaper on the city website.
Councilmember Sandate.
I'm for it.
Okay. Councilmember Nance.
I would be against it. And if I'm not crazy on censures with even the Texas legislature, I think there's only been one, which was recent. For the guy that, I think there was something crazy. I don't think it's common to censure even at the state level.
I think it's they have the ability to do it, but you rarely see it happen.
Yeah, the city council would have to vote for it.
And that's the one thing, even when Megan said that she's looked for it, she didn't really see it. Maybe it's just not a common thing, And to me, it kind of interferes with the civility of council. Like if there was issues between 2 people, I would like to see them work it out as opposed to this to me escalate something.
Did you find another city that had something similar?
I haven't looked.
And
I
I may
just-
be using the wrong word. I use censorship.
Maybe a different word, but I feel like that there's nothing. And so council members can sit up here and be elected by their residents and then not complete what they need to do. So their residents don't have a voice if they're not responding to your emails, if they're not completing their worksheets, or if they get up and leave during the meeting and then there's no longer a quorum, so that action can't be taken. And then their residents' voice isn't heard because they left. I felt, and we've had instances where council has not regulated itself on this. Megan, year after year, has trouble getting budget workshop sheets completed and other information that is needed. And that's not fair to the residents, hence the announcement to them that your council person is not doing what they're supposed to do. Okay, Councilmember Rodriguez.
I don't agree with it at all. Number one, we are elected officials. I do not believe that it is up to the mayor to tell us when we can leave, when we can be here, when we cannot. You yourself said, we are elected. We are not here under the direction of anybody. I do not believe in calling someone out like that. There is something they can do. There is a recall that they can take. They can attend meetings and see what your council person is doing or what they're not doing. But I don't agree in any of this.
Okay. Well, I don't think the residents are going to realize if somebody gets up and leaves during certain sessions, like executive sessions, which the public is not allowed here. I don't think the residents are going to know what their council person is doing unless they pay attention to what's going on at city council. I think it's
Just like
something
they're
that
not,
needs to be done.
just like they're not gonna know what their mayor is doing in executive session.
They
So it's
won't-
not just a matter of the people are not gonna know what council is doing, they're not gonna know what the mayor's doing, they're not gonna know what's happening at all.
So if the mayor
But
gets
that's not
censored,
something-
if the mayor gets censored for leaving during executive session, they're gonna know that because this is gonna apply to the mayor as well.
I don't
Councilmember Nance,
That's really bad.
okay, Councilmember Sandate, Councilmember Stevens.
I get accountability to residents. But I'm not in favor. Okay. Back to Darren's comment. We have a lot of things we're off trying to do. We do the best we can with what's going on. Some of us have greater opportunities for time for council, others don't. I just, again, we spend a lot of time. I'm just not in favor of us. Someone. And I don't think so. I serve on a number of boards. National boards. I chair one. I chaired another. I'm the treasurer on another. And one of the ways in which things work is the collegiality work together. And I would hope we're working amongst us. At this point, I wouldn't take it to city chart modification. Maybe in the future we'll have issues. It makes sense. Just don't see us having that issue right now.
All right, thank you. Yes, and I also serve on a number of boards, and there is accountability to the board members for their actions or lack of actions. All right, so we will skip this one for now and move on to Proposition G.
We're skipping it for what reason? Did we not kind of agree that it wasn't something we wanted?
Well, what did Counselor Dan, what did you think? And you two were no. Yes, I thought there was four. Okay, so
So this is just information and discussion.
just like a
guys.
general.
So there's no like action decisions, it's just discussion.
Right, I just didn't know what we were skipping for, if it was for further discussion or what, because it kind of seemed like everybody was.
Okay, well, we have Councilmember Stokes and we have a new council coming in. All right, Proposition G. All right, for this, it's council members who exceed 6 excused absences or 3 unexcused absences from regular city council shall vacate their seat to be filled as per Charter Section 3.06 vacancies. Attendance via Zoom does not constitute an absence. And this is related to some council members in the past who may not have wanted to continue on council and they were continually absent, and we excuse absences. I've never seen an unexcused absence of a council member. And so we do excuse absences for family business and things such as that. We have 23 meetings a year, possibly 22, depending on when Thanksgiving falls. And 6 is a large number to be absent. And if you're not here representing your residents and you've had 6 absences, you need to vacate to somebody who can be here and who can represent their residents. City manager?
I do think there needs to be a mechanism for people who check out early from their duties. We have experienced it twice in my tenure. So I don't know exact numbers, if it should be 6, if it should be 12 and whatever. If we want to correlate it with what we require of our boards and commissions. But I do think there needs to be a mechanism that allows council to have a conversation at least, like, hey, we're always missing something.
City secretary?
No.
Councilmember Stevens?
So right now, my struggle is it's either excused or it's not excused. If we're gonna define what's excused and we excuse it, I don't know how we can say, I'm sorry, you can't show up because you went to an excused absence, because with funerals and family stuff and all that, I get the checkout issue, but I think if we're gonna do something like this, then we have to redefine what's excused. I mean, that's frankly, I think we're gonna have to do that. Unexcused, I get, but the charter currently requires, that's 3 unexcused, right? But if we're gonna say excused, then we ought to redefine it and say you're only allowed up to 6 excused absences, so choose wisely. I'm just struggling with that. That's where I'm at.
City manager?
Could we add the word consecutive? because that's where it starts.
Oh, that I can handle. I'll get the consecutive. I can handle that. Cause that limits it. I mean, consecutive would be the issue. If someone's checks out, they check out. I get it.
So are we thinking 3 consecutive excused?
I can't give you a number on that, but I would definitely, that's when we kind of noticed the pattern.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, they're not.
Yeah.
So if you did 4, that would be like 1 quarter or 2 months worth of meetings.
Because they're gonna be excused. They're gonna say, I'm gone for family business, or I'm ill, or whatever. I have never seen us have an unexcused absence. Have you guys?
No, because the way our ordinance and what you guys just discussed earlier today, chapter 23 outlines excused absence to include vacations, family.
A lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of.
And then you have the opportunity also to attend via Zoom. You know, it doesn't constitute a quorum, but that constitutes attendance, so you're not absent. And so if you do have that funeral or whatever the illness that comes up, I don't think you're gonna have 6 of them, or if we change it to consecutive 4 or whatever. Okay, Martine?
Like as you all say, there's a lot of excuse. You got vacation, you got sickness in the family, your sickness. There's a bunch of them that's gonna cause you to be excused, so.
Councilmember Nance?
I don't know if I agree with much of this one either, that to me, I think it's important, if someone vacates a seat, then are we putting someone in that seat?
So that's another part of the
The
charter
conversation.
update is to include how do we fill vacancies? Or how do we declare a vacancy? So we have had to in my tenure with the city that they vacated, but they didn't officially vacate, they just stopped coming to the meetings.
Then a couple other questions. Medical, say you're going through cancer treatments or something like that, you could quickly miss a bunch of meetings. Your heart may be in actually serving, but you can't be there for it. Things like that. I've really run back to the idea of what we do, because it allows us to kind of define if their heart's still in being in council, if they're just not showing up to meetings. So when I define this, I say, do we want to police them by numbers and say, you're on number 5, you hit number 6, guess what? We're gonna have to kick you out. Like, I would rather see them have a conversation with the city manager, and then you say, hey, if your heart's not in it, let someone else take the seat so that we can kind of move forward with somebody in that position. And I would think if they're not showing up, unless they're obstinate, they're probably ready to, resign the seat.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate, because when it becomes budget season, like we just had, and we don't have a quorum, and we have one who's obviously not making the meetings, and then
Or by Zoom.
everyone has concerns and issues, we have to postpone things, we have to remove things, reschedule, it does become harder.
So if you,
Councilmember Rodriguez hasn't had a chance yet. Councilmember Rodriguez?
On that note, I think that I agree and I sympathize with somebody that would have that issue of, say, cancer treatments and all that, but it comes to a point that you may have your heart in it, but you really can't be there to do the job. But I think that's also, we need to maybe include workshops. That's one of the reasons I'm leaving. I haven't made workshops. I can't because of my job. And I don't think that that's fair for the people that I represent. Is my heart in it? Yes, I would love it. But I'm not there. I can't be because I have a job. So I think we need to do something to include workshops also and more of the duties, because that's a big part. The way workshops are going now, a lot is being done in workshops. I think they're great. I think they're needed, but council has to be there for it to be effective.
Okay, Councilmember Stevens?
I don't think we need it. Let me read what we wrote in chapter 23. Okay, and this key will be the last sentence. Absences shall be considered excused, considered, okay, not decided, considered, if a person and his family unless emergency, funerals, military service, family events, school vacations, wedding, graduations, business obligations, official city business, including attendance at conferences for municipal officers or other good cause, as determined by the council at the next regular meeting following the meeting in which the member was absent. The city council shall consider a vote to determine whether the member's absence is deemed excused or unexcused. I think we have the latitude. If someone's not showing up, we can say, hey, they've been gone again. Sorry, unexcused.
I don't think that's gonna happen, though. Have we had anybody deemed unexcused in your,
No,
since you've been here?
But maybe like
Okay.
Rick said at the beginning, kind of redefine the excuses, you know,
Yeah.
to where we have more of a definite thing. And hold us accountable, Gio. I know, you know, if we call and say, hey, I'm not gonna be there, I don't feel good, you know, something like that. Sometimes, you know, okay, you really can't make it, or kind of hold us accountable to, we have to be here.
I think that puts something else on Gio's plate. And then we just said with the censoring one another that we don't want to call each other out, because that's going to create tension among the council. And so I don't see that anybody would say, hey, you know, you've been unexcused a lot or excused a lot and you're not here.
Well, that's what I
Councilmember
mean.
Nance.
I'm just gonna say one thing. My philosophy on the charter goes back to leaving the general language in there. So I like that chapter 23 solves this problem where we decide if it was excused or unexcused. But I don't really want to put in specific language into the charter because to me, the charter is more of a very generalized document. Anytime we really start setting specifics into there, we have to abide by.
Totally agree. I think it's important that we abide by them. Okay, so let's stop here because we have so much more and we've already been on this for a while. So can we pick up once again with H and then whatever else? The deadline for the next council meeting is Wednesday, is it the Wednesday before city secretary?
Yes,
Okay.
and you made a comment a minute ago that we would have new members and stuff. So are you going to be going over this again with the new members?
Probably. I'm
So
sure there's
it's-
gonna be more
So
discussion.
then should we wait? I mean, we're spending a lot of time on this and in 2 more meetings, you'll have a whole new council. And if that's the way you feel that you want to, review it with them, then we're just kind of spinning our wheels here.
Yeah, it's good to get the feedback, but I mean, because we've already made some changes, so it is good to get the feedback. And I'm not sure about our deadline. We have to have all this submitted to our lawyer and ready by August, right? To submit to the state, August what? August 19th. And when do we need to have it submitted to the city attorneys? Alessandra?
You know, if you all can do it, give me like 3 weeks of submission time, that would be okay.
Right, so.
So does it have to be this year? I mean, I know it's been a lot of years, but the rushing, does that do any good?
Because
either?
we have a presidential election in November, we would have more turnout of residents and more people would have their eyes on it.
But we
So
don't
I feel
have,
like
we
it's
don't have
important to do
we
that.
don't have elections in the same place where those will take place.
But they will have it on their
We
ballot.
have to,
We will.
in November, if we have an election, we have to hold it with the county.
But we've got time.
Mhm.
we've
Yeah,
got
so that's why I wanted to start the discussions now. All right, so moving on to the next information or discussion item.
Can I make a comment?
Yes,
I just want to thank you for taking and going to work on it.
thank you.
This is not easy. We all have opinions. You took the lead on it. Thanks for doing it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, moving on to action item number 4, discussion regarding updating qualifications for hotel occupancy tax committee members and implementing a requirement that prohibits hotel occupancy committee members from applying for hotel occupancy tax grants. And just listening to Councilmember Stevens, I felt like this was important. The city secretary sent out an email to council members telling us what vacancies we have on boards, which is quite a few. The hotel committee, as Councilmember Stevens has mentioned, is place 1, place 2, place 6. So there's 3 members that we need to fill. 2 of them are listed as hotelier. And speaking with our city secretary, he said that doesn't necessarily have to be a hotelier. I believe that was a ordinance or a resolution that was created by council. So I just wanted to open this up to discussion so that Councilmember Stevens is able to get the quorum for this committee and so that they are able to meet more often. And then also it has been brought to my attention that some members or some individuals have applied for a seat on this board who are also seeking hot funds, which seems like a conflict of interest. And so I just wanted to open that up to discussion, and I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Stevens first, because he's the council member that represents this organization and the one who is having the difficulties.
Thanks, Catherine. So it is a challenge, and Chris Ruggie and I've been working it. I happen to believe, it's a tough issue, but my view is if you're on the hot committee, you should not be one who's applying for hot tax grants. Well, it's a conflict of interest. In my view, it's an obvious one. And I think we want to be pristine about how we're doing the evaluations and making decisions going forward. And I don't know how someone who can be on the hot committee, the way in which the process could work, can make a decision about everything else and ignore theirs. So that's just my bias. I did ask Chris, we had a conversation back and forth about it. He would like to have been here, but I asked him, I said, Chris, any issues with, from his standpoint? He says, no. The hot committee is going through what I call a transformation. We are trying to get committee members on who are willing to spend the time to work through it. It is a thankless job, like all of them are. I'm actually pursuing a couple of hoteliers to get on the committee. We'll see what bubbles up out of it, but we do need to get them filled, and everyone should come up with ideas. Those are my thoughts. I think it's the right discussion. We got some work to do.
I agree with you in regards to the conflict of interest. Absolutely. Councilmember Rodriguez.
I agree with the conflict of interest too, but we don't have that many hoteliers here. So maybe changing that to where they don't have to be hoteliers, because doing that, they're not able to apply for grants, which is, I agree with that, but is that going to keep them from wanting to serve? So maybe opening it up to where it's not all hoteliers.
Councilmember Nance.
I think the board members should be held to the same standard we are, the appearance of impropriety. So if there is an appearance of impropriety, that's a good ethical standard, I believe. But I think too, the individuals that get on that board could be or if they're not on that board, could be creative as far as how they work with the events. Because I think they do see this as a source of fund for events that are actually creating economic activity in the area. So I think the job, some of what they could do is be creative with the people that are receiving this money.
Councilmember Sandate.
Conflict of interest, they shouldn't be able to apply for anything there.
Okay, City Secretary.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've seen firsthand, being the one that communicates with them,
Right.
that there's just an inherent conflict of interest. Like one of them realized the typo, or I missed a page scanning, which, of course they would be concerned about that, but it just kind of goes to show that, again, inherent conflict of interest.
Okay. City Manager.
100% conflict of interest. This has been an item of discussion. Probably the 11 years I've been here. It's always been considered an issue, but we've never put something in place to prevent it. I also agree that we should probably change some of the position requirements to allow it to be a little bit more open, to be able to fill the positions, but also to be able to provide that feedback we may not be getting from a regular citizen who wants to know where our tourism money goes to. Mr. Stevens is correct. The board is changing. What we're requiring of them has changed. A little history for those of you who don't know. It used to be the city manager, director of finance, and city secretary who decided who got the money.
Yep.
So a lot has changed in the past 11 years. And I think it will constantly change, but definitely need a conflict of interest put into place, and then open it up for some more diversity.
Okay. So how do we work this?
So I would, we have put the ordinance together, conflict of interest, that way we can get that in our hotel occupancy committee. So that's one item we can add that in, right?
Definitely. And I know Chris, I had sent Chris Ruggia the current conflict of interest, that basically, if you look at what we put in the city council chapter 23, it does call out boards and commissions as well. So we could utilize that as the initial. I don't think it should go to just the hot. I think it should be applied to all of those commissions.
Yep.
So do you want to remove the requirement that they be hotelier? I mean, they can be, but we'll remove that so that other individuals.
I'm not ready for that yet. I'm gonna go help market the hotels and have discussions. Hey, you may be the owner, you haven't got time. Okay, you're trying to run a business. One of your managers or one of your folks who's involved, because they are the ones trying to put heads in beds.
And we did have multiple managers, and unfortunately, over the past several years, we required more meetings, but too, a lot of them have left. I don't wanna say that they moved out of city, they're just no longer the manager at those hotels.
Right.
They've taken on a different industry or something different, so they no longer meet the requirements. So it kind of makes it hard because the new managers coming into some of these hotels isn't something they really want to do.
So I'm gonna take the action to go to school. I'm gonna talk to the 6 biggies and see what I can pull up.
Well,
And
quick
if out of
question,
that
Rick.
doesn't work, then I'll come back and say, let it change it.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
One quick question. So if you would get like a manager or a worker and all that, would would the hotel still be able to put in an application?
No.
Okay, so anybody.
They're representing the hotel.
Okay.
And our hotels tend not to request.
Right.
My view is they're the ones trying to get them, they're trying to put heads in the beds.
Okay, so for now, you want to leave those to where they have to be hoteliers?
Or represent the hotel industry, it may be a better term, but right now, let me sort of.
Okay, and so we'll work on the conflict of interest.
Yes.
Okay, all right, great. All right, we're gonna take just a quick 5-minute break and then we'll come back to action items. We'll return at 8:02.
4.
Action item number, are we recording?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. Resuming. Action items. Action item number 1 belongs to city manager.
Action item number 1 is to approve the first reading of ordinance 2024-04-01. An ordinance approving rezone application 2024-03-01. Amending the official zoning map of the city by rezoning the property located at 708 South Cactus Street and legally described as 1.52 acres, more or less being the south part of 3.0 acre tract of land described as the south 3.0 acres of the west half W/2 of block 2 in volume 36, page 410, official public records means addition subdivision A to the city of Alpine, Brewster County, Texas, as per plat on file in envelope number 63, map plat records on file in the office of the county clerk of Brewster County, Texas. Rezoning the subject property from R4 Mobile Home District to C1A Neighborhood Commercial District. The property ID of this subject property is 11311. The record owner of the property is Ruben Lozoya. The Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended approval of this application.
I need a motion. Going once, twice. The item dies. There was no motion. Moving on to action item number 2. Councilmember Stevens.
So we've had lots of discussion on this, and I
Councilmember-
propose that we approve the first reading of ordinance 2024-04-02, an ordinance authorizing the installation of additional all-way stop signs at the intersection of North Hancock Drive and Avenue B.
I need a motion.
That was the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, seeing no discussion, let's move on to vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. City Secretary, this motion passes unanimously with all council members voting to approve ordinance 2024-04-02 for the stop signs.
Thank you.
Moving on to action item number 3, city manager.
Approve resolution 2024-04-01, a resolution adopting the swimming pool fee schedule for the fiscal year 2024 for the Alpine Municipal Swimming Pool.
Okay, I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay. And discussion, city manager.
I just want to point out that there is an increase. There has been no increase on the day passes for adults or children in the past 5 years. Our cost of improving the pool and maintaining it has increased. I'm recommending a $1 increase for the adult rate to go from $3 to $4, the children rate to go from $2 to $3. I did look at various cities to get an idea of what other people are charging. It is significantly different than to what we charge, minimum $5 up to $15 a day. Some of these pools are fantastic, just looking at them. There is no change in the individual pass. We still include the senior citizen pass, the 2 different levels of family pass, and the pool party is set the same as last year at $100 plus the deposit of $30. Year over year, I looked at the income to the expenses, and year over year, our expenses exceed what we bring in. We are not trying to profit off of the pool. We're just trying to bring in enough to maintain it so that our community can continue to enjoy it.
Okay, so do you foresee the $1 increase just for the per day emissions will cover the costs? So the city's not in the red.
It will help level it out, but I can't foresee it covering the costs. This last year, we kept the pool open during the winter, so we had some additional time. I don't know what our chlorine will cost this year. It fluctuates in price.
It's gone.
And also, I don't know the amount of overtime it will take to maintain the pool.
Okay, all right, Councilmember Rodriguez.
So it's estimated. Ideally, it should balance itself back out.
On the pool parties, does that 100 also cover the lifeguards?
That just covers the lifeguards.
So should we have maybe a fee and then have them hire the lifeguard or something? Because if we're just, that's all we're doing, we're not even getting enough to pay the other personnel that's gonna be there.
So the only personnel that's there is the lifeguards.
So basically, we're just letting them use it, just get a lifeguard and they're using.
So they're required to have the lifeguards. They can't rent our pool.
Yeah, but we're not
without
making
having city
anything, we're
staff.
not, the
Yeah,
light,
we're,
nothing.
it's just a benefit to the community.
And what is considered a senior citizen for our pass?
So for this, it's gonna be anyone over the age of 55 years, and they have to provide identification. So they'd have to come in with their driver's license.
Councilmember Nance?
One thing I'd say is Megan's opinion on, when we were on the Parks Board and we were doing the Coconut Pavilion, going through the board process to raise those prices. What's your opinion as far as doing it by resolution like this compared to going through an advisory board?
So the way it's currently set up, the pool rates are set by resolution. So that's based off of our current ordinance under section 7477. So you'd have to change the ordinance to set the pool. So right now you have it in the ordinance under Parks and Recreation to set the pool rates by resolution. So every year it's a good overlook to give you an idea of one, what are our expenses? Are we balancing out? Do we need to raise it? Do we need to decrease it? Do we need to restructure? The structure we have in place has been beneficial and we've increased and changed it. So we added senior fees where we didn't have that before.
You already answered my question. Basically, I think I would like to see more of those go into away from the advisory boards and into a resolution, because I was on the Parks Board at that time and we know nothing about the historical context, nothing about the labor cost, overtime, chlorine, or anything else. So I think it makes more sense to lean on you and your historical knowledge of what that product cost as opposed to the advisory boards.
So Jill and myself have slowly been, as we update ordinances, anything that has a fee structure to it, we've amended the ordinance to have the fee set by resolution so that we can work back and put in the correct information. So our utilities is set up that way, the pool is set up that way, our animal is set up that way, building services is set up.
Okay, so we just got to get the rental for the Civic Center and the Coconut Pavilion rental in there.
Gotta switch it over.
Okay, Councilmember Sandate?
And what's the condition of a pool? Any major repairs gotta be done before it opens this summer?
So we did drain the pool, so that we could go in and fill in a couple cracks. That's just wear and tear, and then to repaint it. So we try to repaint it history-wise about every 3 to 5 years. Historically, we've never left the pool full of water. But if you read the actual paperwork that was provided when they redid the pool in 13, it's not supposed to be drained. It's supposed to maintain the water all year round. Staffing wise, it's a nightmare because staff doesn't want to constantly be out there pulling out dead raccoons and it's true. It gets green. So there is some maintenance through the winter months. The only fear that we had, and I really worked well with Eddie and I'm grateful for him, is we don't want the pipes to freeze. So during the winter, someone has to make sure the pumps are running. Whereas if we drain it, you don't necessarily have that, but it's a bigger impact on our water system because then every year we're putting roughly 350,000 gallons.
Councilmember Stevens?
Will this, I'm in favor of this in terms of the rates. Will this cover the cost we're gonna pay for lifeguards?
It should, yes. So we're leaving the lifeguard rates the same because we are gonna go into the study side of it. So we have a first year, second year, third year pool manager rates. And so we're gonna leave those the same. So based on leaving them the same, this would help for it.
Okay. Good,
I'm still just a little concerned on the pool party. Do you have a set, I mean, is there an amount of people that if you have 50, you have to have 2 lifeguards? I just don't want us to get caught to where this is actually costing us because we're already not even breaking even. So I guess that's where I'm just a little bit worried that, you know.
So we break even with the pool parties because there are private pool parties. We do have lifeguard requirements by law, how many lifeguards have to be on duty. You would really have to have at least 6, which we've never hosted a pool party that large to not break even. Minimum, we typically have 2. It's usually a family throwing a birthday party.
And that the 100 covers the 2.
It covers it. It's like,
Councilmember
we're not
Stevens?
profiting, we're not making $1.
Profit, I just want to know we're breaking even.
Yeah, even.
Tentative open date?
So the tentative open date is Memorial Weekend. We are dependent on schools' schedules. We do hire mostly high school students.
Yeah.
And so we are a little dependent on them. And I did put in here that the estimated closing date would be Friday, August 9th, 2024. That's in light of people going back to school and college.
Councilmember Mance?
One last question. When we're talking about the HR study and getting pay raised for city employees, what does that look like for a full manager and the lifeguard? Are they listed as employees of the city?
Yes, they are seasonal employees. They do have job descriptions and they do have a pay structure.
And will they be,
All of them are included.
they're gonna be brought in on that HR study?
Yes, everything we currently have as a job description and what we would like to have. So all of the departments have all done their wish lists for their structures of their departments. So we could include that as well.
Any other discussion? Okay, let's vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. City Secretary, this motion passes unanimously for resolution 2024-01 or -04-01 for the swimming pool fee schedule. All right, moving on to action item number 4, City Manager.
Approve the letter of intent to apply for drinking water state revolving fund lead service line replacement funding.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I need a second.
Second.
City Manager.
The City of Alpine applied in May 2023 for a project information form. These are what we call PIFs with the Texas Water Development Board. This is a roughly 1 page. We want to do a project. Here's what we're thinking it will cost. Here recently I received notification that the Texas Water Development Board has indicated we are eligible for funding specifically under the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, for the lead service line replacement. So as you guys are aware, and we've been talking about quite a bit, we are required to provide the inventory for the EPA. It's a federal mandate for our lead line and copper lines within the City of Alpine, both public and private. Well, the next step of it is how are we going to mediate it? That is part of this as well. So our engineers, Jacob and Martin, sent out the PIF. We got the letter of eligibility. The project is estimated to run slightly over $6 million in May of 2023. Because we are eligible, we can't exceed what we originally submitted, which would be the $6,011,000. This is just a letter of intent. If we want to move forward with this funding, we would have to submit the letter of intent by April 15th, 2024, and the applications are due May 15th, 2024. I just want it to be very clear to the council that we are not required. We can go all the way up to the date you're supposed to sign on the loan and step down. But if we don't put our name in there, we don't put our hat in the ring, we're not going to get any type of money. This grant loan is part of the funding that's coming down from the federal government to the states. It's 51% grant, which means it's 51% no payback, and it's 49% loan at 0 interest rates. Because I think this is an unbelievable deal, and we seriously need assistance with our inventory and our lead and copper and a plan to replace and where do we start, I'm recommending that the council at least put the intent to apply. Now, to be prepared for this, because the applications are due by May 15th. May 15th.
Okay.
So a month later, I have already reached out to our current engineers. I have reached out to our financial advisors, and I have reached out to our last bond council to say, hey, we've got a project that's coming up. Our current engineers have provided us with the assistance to make sure that we issue the correct RFPs. They've put together the required water development forms to be able to start the financial process. Our bond counsel that we've used in the past is currently aware of the situation, as well as our financial advisors, but we still have to go out for an RFP. We still have to select someone, and ideally they'd hope it would be them. Like I said, this application is up until the day you sign the final agreement, you can back out. I just don't want to leave it off the table. Part of this is one, establishing our inventory, understanding where we're at. This will help us with our current project as well. It's estimated 3.6 million. That's actual service line replacement to go in and start replacing the lead and copper lines. Of course, there's the engineering side of it, general, legal, and financial. Because there's a loan component to this, we would have to pay our bond counsel, whoever's selected. Contingency, everyone puts it in a project for your, your oops and what ifs. Which it basically came out to about 6,011,144. So this is just putting the hat in the ring to possibly get a loan at 0% interest.
Okay, Councilmember Stevens?
So just, going through all the detail, Megan, one, I believe, like you do, you can't beat the deal in terms of cost of money. So you might as well go and take a shot at it. We have time to make the final decision later on. So this is not a commitment. This is we'll see if we can get it. What's the term under which this would be for the 3 million we'd have to come up with?
So that is not, we don't know that until we actually get the loan.
Okay.
So looking at all of our prior loans, they're anywhere from 10 to 30 years.
Fine. Okay, so that limits that risk from that standpoint, and 0% interest, keep inflation going, you make money on this deal. We seem to have an inordinately high amount that we're asking for. When you look at Abilene, who's got 120,000 folks, they're 13 million. Why the big disparity, or do you have any idea?
So we are significantly higher because we don't know exactly what our inventory is.
Got it. Okay, you answered my question. I'm good. Yeah, no more questions. Thanks.
Councilmember Sindaki?
No comments.
Councilmember Nance?
Couple questions. So do we know what this construction would look like? Like for $6 million, what is this? Is this gonna be replacing the line directly to the house, to the tap of each house?
This is just the city side. So this doesn't have anything to do with the individual homeowner or property owner. This is just addressing the city side.
To the meter.
So side question, does this mean we're gonna be ripping up roads that gotta get replaced?
No, not at all.
Where does that money come?
We're just gonna pothole them all and just pray.
As they serve as speed bumps, yeah.
So this project, and this is where planning becomes an important concept. If we were to move forward with this, we were to get the loan and grant, and we were to start the project, we would have to coincide with the street department and have a game plan with this is where we're starting. You're gonna have to come back and help pave it over. We're not replacing, so this is lead and copper. So this may be a little bit less, this may be a little bit more. We're replacing the sections that we are going to be required to replace. So we may not touch any of the north side, and we may touch all the west side, or we may touch, it's just really, once we know more, it'd be better. But yes, we will have to pull the roads.
Okay, and lead and copper, judging from historical water leaks, we know the pipes that are leaking. Are they lead and copper, or like, is this gonna solve some of the water leaks and stuff that we have, or are those PVC or whatever?
It's a combination of all of them, but we don't have as many lead and copper.
We don't have a lot of lead and copper. We think, we don't know what we don't know as far as inventory.
So my experience is lead and copper tend to be the smaller lines, 1.5 inches down. They are the ones that tend to run from the main to the meter. Are the lines that we have breaks are the big ones, the 6, the 8, the 10 inch, those are PVC.
Okay.
So it's gonna be running from the main line to the house.
It's also the valves, it's also any of the older couplings and things that have been used to fix some of the plumbing issues or leaks. All of that has to be addressed as well.
Okay.
We do have one line that runs out to the north side of town that is a lead line, but it's already been abandoned, so.
Okay.
So they leave those underground?
Yes.
Okay. I was gonna see if you could talk about the history of the PIF on this. Like, have we applied before?
Yes. So we applied, so this is for 2024. We applied for 2023 or just 2025. So we've applied for multiple ones. This is the first time that I've received the eligibility. We received one eligibility before, but then we didn't get the next step.
So we've tried again.
For this
We've tried.
particular project, we've applied twice. We've applied for different PIPs for wastewater. Any big project that really the public and our engineers are aware of, they put our name out there. So this is the pre-application to the application.
Gotcha. And will this require 1 or 2 readings if so right now we're just saying, okay, that to move forward, but to get the application actually completed and everything else before May 15th?
So this wouldn't be done by ordinance. The application it has resolutions, which have already been prepared on the required form, so they're not gonna look like our normal resolution. That's just a first reading. We do have to go out for RFP, which does require so many days of notification, advertising, making sure we keep all that documentation. This will be the first time that I've actually been part of the process to apply for something like this. So this is still fairly new to me. The application is divided into 5 sections. Some of it's fairly easy. There's a whole engineering section. There's a finance section.
This all comes after May 15th,
No, all of it will be completed by the 15th,
RFP and everything.
not the RFP.
Gotcha. Okay, just wanted to make sure we could make that. And then, because I guess my question would be, if we come in and we're asking for 3 million, even though it is a great deal, and I didn't even think about the inflation, like Mr. Stevens said, we're making money on that.
Yeah. 0% interest.
Wow. The still to come in and for, John Q. Public here at Alpine to take on the smart debt of 3 million, there will be public hearings and stuff.
Definitely public hearings, because there's 2 ways. It's either a certificate of obligation or a revenue bond. My recommendation in talking to multiple individuals is I lean towards the revenue bond, because we've already talked about the rate study and the need to raise rates. And this is a project that would specifically cover that. But then it ties it to specifically the utility department. The city has historically in the past done combined debt, which a portion of it is coming out of property taxes and then a portion comes out of the utilities. I prefer to keep our debt clean, and what's utilities needs to stay in utility.
That's all questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Rodriguez?
I think the conditions of this are really well, and if there's problems later, we can figure it out, but at least get the letter intended.
I agree. Councilmember Rodriguez, Councilmember Stevens. I agree with them. All right. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, please raise your right hand. And this is to approve the letter of intent. City Secretary, it passes unanimously for the letter intent for drinking water state revolving fund lead service line replacement. All right, moving on to action item number 5, City Manager.
Approve the recommendation of the city manager to hire Robert Ruckus as the building official as per city charter section 4.02A for the city of Alpine.
I need a motion.
Motion, hire Robert as the building official as per the charter section 4.02.
Thank you. I need a second.
Second.
Okay, discussion, City Manager.
The city of Alpine did open up the position of building official after the resignation of our prior official. We received multiple applications, not all of them meeting the minimum requirements for the position. We did interview Mr. Ruckus. We brought him in and asked him some very demanding questions. I say that because he is actually here in the council chambers with us tonight. After discussion and looking at his qualifications and the mannerisms in which he interviewed, I think he would be a great asset to the city. I just want for his, I guess, ease. He will not be acting as any type of interim for the utility department. He will solely be specifically for the building official side, building services. As a new employee, I don't want to put on that pressure, and I know that he would appreciate not having it as well. He does have a wonderful background in plumbing. He has taken it upon himself to get several of the ICC certifications. He has an eagerness to learn, an eagerness to improve and help our community grow. And if you have any additional questions, he is here if you'd like to speak with him.
Okay. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Do you plan on being in the area for quite a while? I mean, is this something that you're looking at for at least long term?
Mr. Ruckus, please come. Yes, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be here for quite a long time. My wife has no intentions of moving.
All of her family's here. I don't have family anywhere else, but we'll be here for quite a while. And then, I'm pretty comfortable here. I grew up here and I like it. Okay.
Councilmember Nance?
I was looking through, looks like you've been going up, with all the jobs and everything else like that. That's awesome. Like a go-getter and someone that's assertive to
Yes,
get
sir.
stuff done. Do you kind of have a, I guess, do you have a lot of management experience or even from the military side?
Just in the military, I haven't, or I guess with Plumco, we're kind of on our own, but I've done a lot of restructuring with the business there. So I've been learning a lot of business with them. But in the Marine Corps, I did a lot of management. From the time that I got to the fleet, they saw that I was kind of headstrong and they kind of let me run with it. And I got to go into a couple billets where I was the lead, and then I got meritoriously promoted to corporal. And then that's where, small unit leadership comes into play. And then I got picked up as sergeant. I had a couple of ops chief positions when I was with 4th Recon, also 4th Tanks Battalion. And so I've been department heads, I guess, before.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yes.
Councilmember Sandate?
So you plumber apprentice for 2 years and then a journeyman plumber for 2019 to present, right?
Yes, sir. So I was an apprentice for, I think, right at 2.5 years, Monumentals. And then I became a tradesman, held my tradesman for just over a year, and then got my journeyman's. And then in August, I'll be, I'll have my time for my master's.
Master's.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Stevens?
Have you thought about who would be a mentor for you if you got this job? That may be a rhetorical question. I'd recommend you think about it.
Yeah, I know Robert Blanco.
Yep.
And I looked at his certifications and it's quite extensive. So if I got the position, I'd probably reach out to him and reacquaint myself with him. He's also a fellow Marine, so it's pretty good. And he's already a master code professional, and that's what my goal would be as well. And then I was pretty acquainted with Drew that just left, so I'd probably reach out to him since he's fresh out of here. He'd be able to give me a lot of insight.
That's good. You have his contact information?
I can get it.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at your awards and your certifications. Very, very impressive.
Thank you.
And then, of course, the plumbing experience and the other experiences that you had
Yes,
are
ma'am.
very, very impressive.
And you got a little HVAC equipment in there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I see
did,
that.
commercial HVAC and refrigerant in San Antonio.
yeah. I mean, your list of certifications looks like it's about 20 long. I mean, there are a lot of certifications or more here and awards. City manager?
So I'm glad you guys brought up Mr. Blanco. I have already reached out to him.
Good,
And
thanks.
he's already given me your step 1 through 5.
Yeah.
And the best way to get your certifications, and where to start. I had some other concerns I needed to address with him, and I mentioned hiring a new building official, so he's already aware and provided some guidance, so he will be a valuable resource.
Okay, awesome.
Great. And you have his contact information.
I do.
All right, any?
One last question for Megan. In say, ultimately, what does this position, what is this position structured like? How many people are under this person and where do they work, et cetera?
So currently, let me give you history. We went from 1 person who did it all to 2 people to 3 people. So currently the building official sits over or is the director of the permit technician and the code enforcement officer. And speaking with the prior director and in our development of how we want the city, he had presented having actual inspectors and actually developing a department. And that's the direction we're going to still go. We have 2 certified code enforcement officers, but one only focuses on one side. So ideally developing more code enforcement officers, because 1 person can't do the whole town. We've had issues with that. but actually having inspectors and putting the director position more into a director position to develop the team. So right now he would have 2 employees.
Jessica and Kat.
Okay, any other questions, comments, discussion? Okay, so let's vote on the recommendation of the city manager to hire Robert Ruckus as building
Lucas.
Ruckus
Yes.
as building official as per the city charter. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, city secretary, it passes unanimously to hire Robert Ruckus.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, as the building official. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Very impressive.
Becky will be reaching out to you.
Okay, and that leads us to city council member comments. Councilmember Rodriguez.
It was a really good meeting, with like the country club just coming in and reporting to us. Special thank you to Mr. Lozoya and Mr. Stevens. I hope they do take advantage of their offer to help. That's the only way that things will be done. I think it was a great show of how people get together to make things happen here.
Thank you. Councilmember Nance.
No comment.
Councilmember Sandate.
Pueblo Nuevo Park is looking great. They've
Good.
been pouring a lot of concrete. I'm thinking they're almost done.
Good. For Pueblo Nuevo. Excellent. Councilmember Stevens. Okay, and then I just want to say I'm very impressed with your resume and I think great things are going to come and thank you for applying for the position. Okay, and with that, the meeting is adjourned, 8:34.